At the center of the world, monsters dwell on the white snowfield. There are monsters like the white serpent that devour glaciers. There is a gray bear that causes earthquakes. There is even the vile rat that pollutes the seas. In all of these, an emperor returned alive from the white snowfield and said the most dangerous thing isn't the monsters. In the white snowfield, barbarians are seen running around, taking out monsters and eating them for snacks. Among them is our MC, Katal, and he seems to be the only one with higher intelligence. Katal always tried to lecture his fellow comrades on some of the dangers of eating poisonous creatures, but these dudes don't care. Katal then narrates how he never wanted to live amongst clueless and savage barbarians. Katal's entire idea was to go to a fantasy world, which is a world of magic and wonder. Because of this, he quits his boring job and goes on a journey. He climbed the tallest mountain on Earth, reached the Earth's core. He even traveled to the southernmost point on the planet. However, he found nothing. He realized that reality is very far from fantasy. However, he didn't give up, and every night he prayed that he would wake up in the middle of a fantasy world. And then one day, Kettle's prayers were answered. Now, in the white snowfield, a caravan carrying important goods is passing through, and it is being guarded by a bunch of mercenaries. The mercenaries are hit with so much cold that some of them start to complain that the risk isn't worth the reward. Sitting in one of the couches is Melina of the house Akasha, and she is accompanied by her butler. The butler asks Melina how she is feeling, and she assures the butler that she is fine while the mercenaries outside are complaining of the cold. The butler talks trash about the mercenaries, but Melina tells him not to, since they are the only ones willing to risk guarding them through the supposedly dangerous white snowfield. The butler then asks Melina if she knows what resides in the snowfield, and she says monsters. The legends once talked about an emperor who wanted to control the whole world, and he also wanted to conquer the white snowfield. Because of this, he led every strong fighter and soldier he had into the snowfield. A few years after this, his empire comes crashing down since its ruler is nowhere to be found. Later on, the emperor returned, but all of his soldiers were gone. He looked really old, and he spoke from a place of horror. The emperor came out with the popular saying that the most dangerous thing in the snowfield is not the monsters, but the barbarians that reside there. The butler believes that this is nothing but a legend. However, Melina begs to differ since the emperor's words carried weight, and most of the creatures that he described were later discovered. However, no one has ever claimed to see a barbarian except for the emperor. Suddenly, the carriage comes to a halt. The mercenaries spot something in the distance, but it doesn't seem clear to them yet. The captain of the mercenaries tells his soldiers to prepare themselves in anticipation. Just then, the unidentified object moves closer to them, and the image of a towering giant man appears right in front of them. His face looked scary, and he finally opened his mouth to talk. It turns out to be our MC, and he reveals that he got tired of the other barbarians, which is why he came for a stroll. Kettle is surprised to have run into outsiders in the snowfield, and he attributes it to luck. Kettle offers his greetings to the mercenaries, and he quickly figures out that they are guarding the caravan. He wants to suggest that they turn back, but he knows that they won't. While he is speaking, the mercenaries are too stunned to speak as they are trying to process what it is that is standing in front of them. Just then, Katal asks the captain if their employer is in the caravan. He reveals his wishes to be hired just like the mercenaries too. The mercenaries immediately raise their arms against Katal, but then he makes himself clear. He lets them know that he is willing to help them cross the snowfield. The captain is surprised that Ketal the barbarian is not hostile toward them, but in fact asking for work. Ketal assures the captain that if he meant to do harm, they would all be dead already. The captain reluctantly asks Melina what she wants to do regarding Ketal's request. Melina wants to know what will happen if they fight Ketal, and the captain lets her know that fighting Ketal seems to be out of their options. After weighing what the captain said, Melina agrees to hire Ketal. The captain then walks over to Ketal to tell him the lady's decision. Ketal is glad to hear this, and he walks toward the caravan. The mercenaries have the intention to stop him, but their bodies won't because of the overwhelming aura emanating from Ketal. Ketal tells the mercenaries that he only wants to speak with Melina. One of the mercenaries wants to protest against this, but the captain reminds them that Melina already approved of it. In addition to this, the captain is wise enough to know that they don't even have what it takes to stop Ketal. Ketal reaches the caravan, and he asks to come in. The butler almost pisses his pants when Melina tells Ketal to enter. Upon entering the caravan, Ketal tells the butler to calm his nerves because he has no intentions of harming him. Ketal says this while pushing the butler to the caravan walls with his big body. Melina is stunned as she cannot believe that the legendary barbarian is sitting in front of her. The two offer their greetings, and Ketal mentions how warm it is inside the caravan. He reveals his surprise that the caravan can retain its warmth through the harsh cold weather in the snowfield. Melina then reveals that this is made possible because of magic. Ketal doesn't look surprised as he already knows that this might be the reason. Ketal then tells Melina that their chances of passing through the snowfield with mercenaries are quite low. However, he is going to protect them, but he has just one condition. Melina asks him what he wants, and he reveals that he wants information about the outside world. He wants to know what is going on outside the snowfield. Melina is shocked to hear this, but since she is not losing anything and in fact, she has no choice, she assures Ketal that she will tell him what he wants to know. Since they will be working together, the two finally exchange names. Apparently, Ketal just woke up one day to find himself as a barbarian in the snowfield. He didn't have the time to figure out why this happened to him. The only things that existed there were the terrible cold and ridiculously strong monsters. He is the leader of a tribe in the snowfield, and they hunt to survive. Without realizing it, countless years passed. He tried many times to get out of the snowfield, but there was an apparent system that prevented him from leaving. The system informs Ketal that he can only leave when he has completed all the quests. He was about to give up on everything when the Emperor and his men showed up. He wondered why humans would willingly come to a place as terrible as the White Snowfield. This was when he realized that the world outside the snowfield is a world of fantasy and magic that he had so much wanted to visit. Once he figured out this truth, Ketal began taking the quest seriously. He hunted down giant lizards and monsters that the quests gave to him. He continued doing this, believing that one day he would get the chance to leave the snowfield. However, until then, he plans to gather information about the outside world, and this is why he is talking to Melina. Ketal is glad that Melina is calm, unlike most humans that he has met in the past. Most people he met in the past were violent, but talking to Melina gives him the sense that he is having a conversation with a civilized person. Ketal then asks Melina if the caravan is moving weapons. Melina is shocked by the question, and she asks Ketal how he knows. Ketal replies that he can hear the sound of sharp steel from the wagons, which makes it easy to figure out. He then asks if there is a war on the outside, to which she says yes. Apparently, the Empire and the Kingdom are currently at war. Ketal is not totally surprised that even the outside world is not entirely peaceful. Melina reveals that the Empire is currently controlling the battlefield, but the Kingdom is still trying its best to hold out. The Kingdom's swordmasters and heroes are protecting the border to keep things at bay. Ketal hears about swordmasters, and he immediately becomes interested. He asks Melina what sort of power the swordmasters are using. Melina then asks him if he knows about mysticism, but he says no. Melina explains that a power called mysticism exists in the world. Apparently, only a few can use or even sense the power. These few are granted one of the 5 ranks of strength. There is the 3rd rank. These are people who can sense the power of mysticism. The 2nd rank is those who can use the power of mysticism. The 1st rank is those who can materialize the power of mysticism into mana or aura. People like knights and wizards usually belong to the 1st rank. However, there are those who have transcended the rankings. These are the people who can dominate mysticism and use it freely. They are capable of doing very powerful things, and this is the rank that the Swordmaster belongs to. And when talking about the heroes, they are far beyond everything else. They are basically an influence on the world itself. Melina considers the heroes beings that are out of this world. After hearing everything that Melina has to say, Ketal wonders how long he has been trapped in the snowfield. At this point, he doesn't really care again. He just wants to get out of the snowfield and reach the outside world, which is the fantasy world that he has been longing for. Melina then asks Ketal if he is a barbarian, to which he says yes. Melina reveals that there is a legend about the barbarians. This shocks Ketal as he never knew that something like this existed. He realized that the Emperor must have been the one who went out to spread such. Ketal then moves past the legend talk, and he talks about the large number of weapons being moved by Melina. He asks Melina if there is a particular reason for them to go through the snowfield, to which Melina replies that her family needs a whole load of money. Ketal asks her why, and she explains that her family has been in the commercial industry for quite a while. However, they are currently in debt because their rivals found a way to sabotage them. The expedition Melina is embarking on is one that would prevent the total collapse of the family. Ketal is impressed by this, and he mentions that they are selling weapons to the kingdom. Melina is shocked, and she asks Ketal how he knows this. Ketal reminds her that she previously mentioned that the Empire is winning the war, which means they don't need a resupply of weapons. Since the supply of weapons is low, the demand would be high. In return, the price would be high, and because of the situation, Ketal figures out that the weapons would be of high value. For them to even be going through the risky snowfield, Ketal knows that it is quite valuable. Ketal then asks if there is no other way to reach the kingdom without passing the snowfield, and Melina says yes. Melina is shocked by everything she has seen so far, since everything she heard about barbarians is the fact that they are uneducated and they are a bunch of savages. She wonders if Ketal is truly a barbarian, and just then, the carriage runs into a bit of a problem. The carriage has run into a black slime, leaving them scared. Ketal is the only person sitting comfortably in the caravan without any sense of fear. Melina tells him about the records that are being kept concerning dangerous monsters in the snowfield. There are strong adventurers who have entered the snowfield in the past, but little made it out alive. Out of those few are the ones who left records of the monsters that they encountered. Among the said creatures is the black slime. Melina asks Catal if he knows about the black slime, and he says yes. However, Catal considers them to be snacks and nothing really dangerous. Melina is shocked when she hears that Catal eats the black slimes. He then suggests that they catch some so that they can eat, but she immediately refuses. The moment Melina sees that the black slime is posing a threat to the mercenaries, she starts to scream at Catal for help. However, Catal refuses to move, telling Melina that he is not going to act unless they come across something that poses an actual danger to them. He tells Melina that the mercenaries should be able to handle the black slime. In addition to this, he wants to gauge the level of strength between the mercenaries. Realizing that Catal is not coming to help, the captain of the mercenaries starts screaming out orders for his men. He sets up a formation for those who would play defense and then orders some of his men to attack. They manage to hit the black slime, but it doesn't do much damage. The captain has a bit of experience under his belt, and he tells his men to scatter and coordinate themselves since the black slime can only move in straight lines. The mercenaries follow the instructions of their captain, and in a coordinated attack, they are able to hurt the black slime. The mercenaries refuse to back down and only keep the attack going. The captain tells his men to attack the slime and try to look for its core. After some minutes of battling the black slime, they are able to reach the core and destroy it, ultimately defeating the black slime. An echo of victory rises among the mercenaries. They are glad that they managed to take down the scary monster without sustaining any casualties. However, Catal sits in the caravan, totally unimpressed. Not long after this, they run into another monster, a wolf this time around. The mercenaries carry the morale from their last battle into this, and they are able to easily take down the beast. After taking down their latest beast, the mercenaries start getting cocky, believing that the monsters in the snowfield are not that scary. However, the captain tells his men not to let down their guard since they have not even made it halfway through the snowfield. Whispers start spreading among the mercenaries as they wonder if Catal is really strong or if he is just lying. They are also mad that he hasn't done anything to protect them since he joined them. In fact, they believe that he is the one tagging along so that they can protect him. Some of the mercenaries believe that it would be much better if they could verify his strength. The mercenaries soon take their complaint to Melina. They talked about how they have risked their lives, but Kettle has done nothing. They tell Melina that they would like to verify whether Kettle is strong or if he is just messing with them. Melina is confused as she doesn't know what method the mercenaries plan to use in verifying if Catal is strong. The captain apologizes on behalf of his men, telling the lady that he tried to stop them, but he couldn't. Kettle soon learns about the mercenaries' complaint. He then tells them that there is no time to verify his strength yet because they have just received an unwanted visitor. The mercenaries believe that Catal is just messing around until they turn to see a giant and scary snake standing behind them. The snake is determined to make a meal out of the humans, making it very dangerous. The presence of the snake petrifies the mercenaries. Just then, Catal speaks to the snake, telling the snake to back off because the humans are under his protection. However, the snake remains stubborn, trying to remind Catal of the rules guarding the snowfield. Catal urges the snake to mind its business, but the snake refuses to back down. The snake raises its head, ready to strike, and this is when Catal loses it. He decides that a good beating will get the snake back to its senses. He approaches the snake, and with just a single punch, he is able to make the snake scream for its life. The hit from Catal's punch leaves a shockwave in the area. The snake passes out from Catal's strike, but Catal decides to finish it off since it refused to heed his warning. With just one more hit that showcases how dangerous Catal is, he finishes off the beast. After he is done beating the snake to death, the mercenaries all turn to Catal, asking him to forgive them for acting all stupid. Catal acts petty toward them, but the journey continues. The butler then joins the mercenaries outside, leaving Catal with Melina. Kettle then asks Melina why someone who seems to be of importance, like her, is the one running such a dangerous errand for her family. Melina reveals that she is the first daughter of her mother, who is her father's mistress. Her mother is a second wife who came for a political marriage but was used and abandoned. Apparently, Melina and her mother hold no real significance in the family. They are basically nothing, and because of this, they are treated like servants. Melina further adds that she volunteered to go on the mission. Melina admits that the mission is quite dangerous, but someone needed to set an example. After hearing Melina's story, Kittle concludes that she is clever. In addition to this, he believes that she is ambitious. Not long after this, they arrive at the end of the snowfield. They all thank Catal for his assistance. Catal then asks Melina how they plan to return, and she reveals that they are going to go through the Empire since they will no longer be carrying weapons. Melina then asks Catal why he called her a clever and ambitious person. Kittle tells the lady that this is exactly what he means. Since her family is losing their status and they are in debt, Kettle figures out that Melina is using the opportunity to be her family's savior. Even though she is the daughter of the second wife, the people will obviously trust and follow her. Catal has been able to piece together that Melina is trying to seize real power in the family. After hearing everything Catal has to say, Melina confesses that he is not wrong. Melina is shocked at how a barbarian like Catal is so clever. It dawns on Melina that having Catal by her side would actually mean a lot. Melina then offers Catal the chance to follow her out of the snowfield, but Kettle declines the offer, telling Melina that he still has some things that he needs to sort out. Melina is disappointed, but she decides to give Catal her family's crest. She tells him to look for the Akasha family if he ever decides to come outside and show them the treasure. Catal gladly accepts the gift and hopes that they all meet again someday. Melina and her entourage ride off, and Catal returns to the snowfield to take on the quests given to him. 5 years later, Catal finally meets all the conditions set, and he completes the quest. The system informs him that he can finally leave the snowfield. With excitement, Catal takes his first step out of the snowfield into the fantasy world that he has always wanted to visit. Catal steps into the woods, and he takes in all the scents of animals, flowers, trees, and other things made of nature that he didn't have when he was in the snowfield. Catal takes one last look at the snowfield, and he declares that he is never coming back to it. He is finally in the fantasy world that he dreamed of, which he never thought he would reach. Even though everything went wrong from the start, Catal doesn't mind. He has made it to the fantasy world, and he is ready to enjoy himself. He is looking forward to seeing swords, magic, dragons, and elves. He looks further into the forest and feels human presence coming from there. Catal assumes that he is close to a village, and he excitedly walks in that direction. As he approaches the location, he is stuck between what sort of greeting he should go with. Not being able to come to a decision, Catal decides that he is just going to act like a gentleman. Meanwhile, the presence that Catal felt was a bunch of elves finally settling into the environment. An elf elder tells his people to unpack their things and get ready to make the area their home. One of the elves asks the elder if the area is really safe for them, and the elder says yes. He reveals that they are in an extremely remote area that humans rarely come to. This is because the snowfield is close to them, and the elders assure the elves that they have nothing to worry about when it comes to the snowfield. There have not been any reports of anything coming out of the snowfield in thousands of years, so he assures them that they are safe. To be safer, they have set up a barrier around the area. It is a concealment spell that hides the presence of the elves and makes the place look like an ordinary forest. The elder elf reveals that they spent months putting together while following ancient elven magic that they managed to recover. He is confident that no outsider will be able to reach them as long as the barrier holds. However, in a rare case that monsters come attacking, the elder elf is confident that the elf queen will take care of the problem really easily since she is pretty powerful. At the same time, Catal is walking toward the settlement, and he accidentally cuts through the barrier without even realizing it. He continues walking until he runs into an elf child who wandered away from the settlement. Catal is immediately blown away just by the sight of an elf. He considers himself a lucky person since elves are considered to be a rare race. Just then, the elven child also notices the towering image standing above her. Catal waves his hand to the kid, but she immediately passes out in fear. Kettle picks up the girl and decides to return her to the village. Catal is confident that the elves will welcome him with open arms since they are considered to be a peaceful race. Catal arrives at the village only to receive a hostile welcome. The elves are thrown into disarray as they wonder how Catal broke through the barrier. Even the elven elder is surprised to see a human, since the entire area is supposed to be forbidden for humans. The elves soon figure out that Catal has caused a crack in the barrier. The elves start to pee their pants because their queen is not home. She went to scout the area. Catal tries telling the elves that he is not their enemy, but none of them is ready to hear what he has to say. The elves believe that Catal and other humans have come to attack them just like they always do. Catal finally realizes that the elves see him as a kidnapper. He plans to clear the misunderstanding, and to do this, he returns the elven kid he is carrying in his hand. The child turns back to look at Catal, and she only sees the same scary image from before. She runs toward her people in tears. Catal then speaks to the elves, pointing out that he has returned the child, which shows that he is not their enemy. However, this doesn't work as the elven leader orders the elves to attack Catal since the kid has returned to them safely. The elves fire arrows at Catal, leaving him to wonder if the elves are even trying to listen to what he has to say. As the elves attack, Catal reveals his disappointment. With what he heard, he believes that elves are supposed to be gentle, but he realizes that reality is quite different from fairy tales. He figures out that the elves have gotten aggressive because only the fittest win the game of survival. All the elven attacks fail to penetrate Catal's skin, but they keep attacking, believing that he must have a limit. Realizing that the elves are not ready to calm down, Catal claps his hands, releasing a massive shockwave. The shockwave throws the elves in different directions and also leaves a deep crater where Catal is standing. The elf elder is shocked to see this as he wonders just what sort of monster Catal is. Catal realizes that he misjudged his strength, but then he tells the elf leader that he is not an enemy to the elves. Suddenly, a massive fiery arrow hits Catal from behind. The arrow hits Catal on the head, engulfing him in fire. The attack came from the elven queen, Marsaria. The queen demands to know what happened, and the elf leader claims that they were attacked by a human. Marsaria concludes that the area is also not safe for them. Just when the smoke clears, Marsaria and the other elves are left in total shock to see that Ketal is still standing. The elder elf wonders how Ketal is able to take Marsaria's direct blow and doesn't die. Without hearing from Ketal, the queen concludes that Ketal is there to hurt them. She prepares to fire another arrow at Ketal. Ketal wonders why none of the elves are acknowledging what he is trying to tell them, even though they are all speaking the same language. Since the elves are not ready to hear what he has to say, he plans to beat it into them. Marsaria fires her arrow, but Ketal punches it back at her. Ketal misjudges his strength again, and it almost ends the queen's life. The arrow misses her but destroys everything behind her. Marsaria realizes that the foe she is going up against is pretty strong. She wonders why someone as powerful as Ketal is in the area. She immediately orders the elves to run away from the area. The elves adhere to the queen's instructions, and they all make a run for it. The queen then faces Ketal, telling him that he will never achieve his sinister goal. Ketal is shocked because all he wants to do is talk. The queen then resorts to the last thing she can do when her homeland is threatened. She speaks some chants and summons a giant fiery bull. Ketal doesn't feel threatened by this, but he is rather impressed. He realizes that the bull with horns ablaze in flames standing in front of him is a spirit, and this is something straight out of fantasy. Marsaria then orders the bull to annihilate Ketal. The bull, Fiego, complains about the summoning, but Marsaria tells it to shut its mouth. Apparently, Fiego is a high-ranking fire spirit that holds flame in its horns. The stronger the spirit, the older and more boastful they get. Marsaria admits that she wouldn't have been able to summon a high-ranking fire spirit like Fiego, but she got help from another tribe, and she barely succeeded in forming the contract. Marsaria then orders Fiego to fulfill his contract. Fiego takes a good look at who he is supposed to annihilate, and he wonders if Ketal is even human. Even though Fiego is doubtful, he still has to fulfill his contract. He decides that he is going to burn Ketal to ashes. He charges toward Ketal, leaving destruction in his wake. Surprisingly, Ketal grabs Fiego's horn with just one hand. Fiego almost breaks apart when this happens. Ketal admits that he is impressed by seeing a spirit, but at the same time, he doesn't mind beating it to death. Ketal hits Fiego with a single punch, throwing him several meters away, while also splitting in half. Fiego splitting in half leaves massive destruction where it lands. When this happens, Marsaria falls to her knees in despair. She has done everything in her power, but couldn't leave a scratch on Ketal. Ketal walks toward her and she begs that her people be spared. Standing tall and confident, Ketal says what he has been saying since the beginning. He tells Marsaria that he is not her enemy, nor is he an enemy of the elves. Marsaria is shocked to hear this, and after a bunch of conversation, the elves finally accept the truth. Marsaria and the elves apologize to Ketal for judging too quickly. Ketal then assures Marsaria that he understands her situation since she said they were driven to the remote area by humans. He is only sad that the elves didn't hear him out before attacking him. Ketal then reveals that it is his first time seeing an elf since there are no elves in the white snowfield. Marsaria is shocked when she realizes that Ketal is from the snowfield where it is said that humans can't survive. Marsaria then reveals her worry. She asks Ketal if there are others who can come from the snowfield too. Ketal assures Marsaria that the possibility of someone or any monster coming out of the snowfield is very unlikely because there are rules in the snowfield that even powerful beasts like dragons cannot afford to break. He knows that his escape from the snowfield is nothing but an exception. Marsaria is relieved to hear this. Ketal then asks her about Fiego since it got split in half. The queen assures Ketal that he has nothing to worry about. Since the spirits are beings of nature, Fiego would just return to the spirit realm through reverse summoning. Since she was rude to Ketal, she asks him if there is anything that he wants. She promises Ketal that whatever he asks for, she is going to grant it. Ketal then asks Marsaria if it is possible for humans to form contracts with spirits. The queen reveals that this is not possible, but there are some humans who have become one with nature, and these humans can form contracts with spirits. Marsaria then thinks it over again, and she tells Ketal to head to a place called Elfo Sagrado if he wants to form a contract with a spirit. Elfo Sagrado is where the elven divine beings live, and it is considered to be the sacred land of elves. Marsaria tells Ketal that what he wants might be possible at Elfo Sagrado. Ketal wonders if a human like him can go to the elven sanctuary. Marsaria admits that humans can't get there, but with her permission, Ketal will be able to. Marsaria promises to give Ketal the location of Elfo Sagrado, but urges him to keep it safe since some vile humans will do anything to reach there. Elves have never revealed the location to other races, but for some reason, the queen trusts Ketal with the location. Marsaria conjures what seems to be a GPS tracker for Ketal. She tells him to take it with him, and it will lead him to Elfo Sagrado. However, she lets him know that he will be tested by the elven divine beings. Not that Marsaria is worried about this because she is very confident that Ketal will pass. Marsaria wishes him luck on his journey, and after exchanging names, Ketal leaves. With just a leap, Katal clears a great distance in the forest. Katal continues at this incredible speed, and in no time, he reaches the border of the Barkan territory, which is in the kingdom of Gehenthra. The guards sense that something is approaching, causing them to panic. When Katal finally emerges from the forest, the guards are left in absolute disbelief. With a calm and happy face, Katal offers his greetings to the guards. The guards are still stunned, and it soon dawns on them that the dude standing in front of them is a barbarian. He walks toward the guards, but they immediately raise their arms at him. They threaten to attack if he comes any closer. Katal urges the guards to calm down because he is not their enemy. The guard captain then asks Katal what he wants from them. Katal points at the city walls, then lets the guards know that he would like to visit their territory. The guards are left in a state of shock as they find it difficult to give Katal an answer. When the captain finally pulls himself together, Katal is taken into private so that he can be interrogated. The captain asks him how long he plans to stay in the city, and Katal sincerely tells the captain that he doesn't have an idea. He then asks for his name and identity. Katal reveals his name, but for identification, he doesn't have. Just then, he remembers the piece that Melina gave him 5 years ago. He brings it out and hands it over to the captain. The captain is confused as he doesn't know what the jewelry is. Katal then explains that it is the Akasha family's crest. He mentions that he received it from a descendant of the Akasha family. When the captain hears this, he realizes that the Akasha family is the merchant family from the kingdom of Denian. Apparently, the family has started gaining influence in recent times, and this was after the head of the family was replaced some years back. Katal then asks the guard if the crest is enough to confirm his identity. The guard hesitates to answer, and Katal asks him if the crest is not from the kingdom. The guard explains that the crest is from the Denian kingdom, but they are currently in the kingdom of Gehenthra. The guard tells Katal that the crest is not a confirmation, but at least it is helpful. He lets Katal know that he can enter the city, but there is a condition that he needs to meet. Apparently, they need confirmation that Katal is not dangerous. The captain informs Katal that he will join a party. There are 3 other people who are trying to enter the territory, and Katal will form a party with them. Katal and his party will then clear the dungeon, which is close to the territory. Without hesitation, Katal accepts the condition. The guard then mentions that Katal would have to tell them everything that happened while clearing the dungeon. Katal immediately figures out the captain's game plan. Apparently, he is making people with no identities gather information about each other so he can then use this to filter out the suspicious or good people. Katal is impressed with the guard's way of doing things. The captain asks Katal if he is truly a barbarian, to which he says yes. The captain then stops the conversation and suggests that they get going. Meanwhile, the other 3 guys are in the waiting room. There is the self-proclaimed holy knight, Tyrannus. There is also the thief, Kasan. These 2 seem to have a beef of unknown origin with each other. They continue insulting each other and are even about to fight before the 3rd member of the group steps in. She is a priest of Colossia, and her name is Hayes. The trio is waiting for the 4th member of the party, and they all hope that the last person is normal. Just then, the guard announces the arrival of the 4th person. The door opens, and the giant Katal enters the room. The atmosphere in the room immediately changes with the trio left in shock. Katal breaks the silence in the room as he addresses the group. The trio still finds it hard to say anything as they all wonder if Katal is even human because of how big he is and the amount of pressure coming from his body. The captain leaves, closes the door behind him, and tells the group that he will be back after they are done with introductions. Katal is the first to get down to introductions, leaving the others no choice but to follow suit. Katal is interested in Tyrannus, who claims that he is a holy knight. Katal asks him if he can use holy power, and Tyrannus manages to lie his way out of the situation. When Hayes introduces herself, she reveals that she is serving Colossia, the god of lies and deception. Hayes is not really proud to reveal her profession since the god she is serving is not really popular with the people and for obvious reasons. Moments later, the captain returns to the room, telling the group to prepare themselves. The party members are led to the entrance of the dungeon. The dungeon is a 3-floor dungeon, and the monsters in the dungeon are the undead. Their goal is to clear the dungeon and find the emblem. Before they enter the dungeon, Kasan decides to take the leader and create a formation for them to follow. He tells Katal and Tyrannus that they will be the ones to stay up front while he checks for traps. And for Hayes, she's going to be behind them, providing support for them. After laying down his plan, everyone believes that it is all right, and they all decide to follow it. With this, the party enters the dungeon. Upon entering, they notice how dark the dungeon is. Kasan observes the area but finds no traces of traps. He is surprised that the dungeon looks suspiciously ordinary. Just then, they run into bones scattered all over the floor. Kasan immediately stops their advance, pointing out that the bone fragments are monsters. He reveals that the bones will rise into skeletons and attack if they go any closer. Kasan then figures out that the dungeon wasn't for checking the party's sincerity, but it was there to get rid of any suspicious outsiders trying to enter the territory. Katal immediately becomes interested in the skeletons. Kasan further explains that the skeletons are dangerous monsters because they can continue moving even after they have lost their limbs. In addition to this, their defense is quite strong since they are made of bones. Kasan points out that the dungeon is more dangerous than he anticipated. He orders Hayes to get her divine powers read. He also tells Tyrannus to get his shield up, and he urges Catal to also be ready. Kasan continues with his plan. He tells the group that he is going to aim for openings once the fight begins. Since skeleton bodies move even when they have been broken down, he suggests that they aim for the neck. Because of how tough the skeletons are, Kasan says they will have to hit them multiple times. Catal acknowledges all of Kasan's plans and commends him for being a good leader. Just then, Catal walks toward the skeleton that has already come together. The skeleton is armed with a sword, and while Catal is staring at it in amusement, the others are preparing their battle weapons. Suddenly, Kettle slaps the skeleton, and it turns to dust. The other party members are horrified when they see this. As if he didn't do anything spectacular, Kettle turns back to look at his stunned teammates. He agrees with Kasan, saying the skeletons really do not move again once their head is gone. However, Kasan is too shocked to even say a word. What he meant was something else entirely. Skeletons are made of bone, and the skeleton's bones are also made from really hard and unusual material. A skilled swordsman will find it hard to cut down a skeleton in 2 strikes. In addition to this, the skeletons are strengthened by the dungeon's magic. Because of this, the only way to defeat a skeleton is to attack the neck multiple times, just like cutting down a tree. With what Kasan knows, it is basically impossible to blow off a skeleton's neck and turn it into powder. Kasan can easily see that Catal is strong, but he never thought it was up to the level he witnessed. Kasan starts to wonder if Catal is really human. Catal finally kicks some life into the room again when he suggests that they keep moving. In unison, the trio agrees, and they all follow Catal. When Kettle notices that they are rushing, he urges them not to rush, and they all obey as if he is their commander. With what they witnessed, they start praying that they don't die at Kettle's hands. Shortly afterward, they run into skeletons again. Kasan and the others are preparing to strike when Catal asks them for a favor. He tells them to hold off while he deals with the skeletons himself, because there is something he needs to check. Without argument, the trio agrees to Kettle's proposal. Kettle thanks them and then walks toward the skeleton while his party members wonder what is going on in his head. Kettle stares at the skeleton in amusement, wondering what sort of structure it possesses. The skeleton swings its sword at Catal, but he catches the tip and breaks it off. Catal then waits for the skeleton's next course of action. The skeleton still swings at Catal with its broken sword, and this time, Kettle grabs the skeleton's right limb. Kettle breaks off the limb and crushes it. He then waits to see what the skeleton wants to do again. Once the skeleton realizes that it is missing its right limb, it switches the sword to its left limb. Catal is impressed by this, and as the skeleton rushes toward him, Catal grabs the left limb and crushes it too. The skeleton is now without its 4 limbs, but it still tries to take a swing at Catal. Catal crushes everything to the base as he figures out that the skeleton possesses intelligence. Meanwhile, his teammates are sweating really hard as they can't believe that Catal is toying around with a monster that they consider to be very dangerous. The trio agrees in unison that the dude standing in front of them is truly a barbarian. After he is done playing with the skeleton, Catal apologizes to his teammates for the holdup, but they all tell him that he is free to do whatever it is that he wants to do. Kettle suggests that they keep moving forward, and they all comply with no argument. In no time, they reach the 2nd floor. Kasan suggests that they take a rest, and after thinking about it, Catal agrees. Kasan and the other 2 are glad that he agreed to this, and they immediately sit down to catch their breath. Catal then tells the trio that he has some questions about the dungeon. He apologizes for his lack of knowledge when it comes to the dungeons, but Hayes cuts in, assuring Catal that his quest to know more is a good thing. Hayes asks him what he is curious about, and he mentions the fact that the dungeon is so close to the human territory. He wants to know if monsters don't attack people. Hayes replies that the dungeon monsters do not come outside to attack people. However, there are sometimes exceptions, but in these cases, they are checked and taken care of before they get out of hand. Kasan then adds that dungeons occur naturally. Sometimes they occur in the form of a cave, while others appear in the form of towers. They also appear close to where there is a large settlement of people. Whenever the dungeon appears, the territory in charge checks the danger levels, and then people like Catal, who are outsiders or mercenaries, enter to clear the dungeon. Kettle then asks if the dungeons appear inside settlements, but they say no. It only appears outside of the territories. He also asks if there is a reward for clearing the dungeons, and they say yes. There is usually a boss on the last floor that, if defeated, gives loads of rewards. After hearing all of this, Kettle compares it to a game. Kasan hears him and asks him what he means by game, but lets Kasan know that he was just talking to himself. Kettle then asks one more question. He asks them who makes the dungeons, shocking the trio. Hayes tells Catal that the dungeons appear naturally so that they are not made by anyone, but Catal begs to differ. He mentions the fact that the dungeons appear near places where there are many people. The dungeons appear near where people live and then lure them with rewards. Catal believes that the dungeons are man-made because of the way they operate. Hayes is shocked to hear this, and she starts thinking over the possibility that Catal might actually be right. Kasan also thinks about it, and he realizes that he never questioned the origin of the dungeons since everyone considers it to be an obvious principle. Kasan is shocked that a barbarian like Catal can appear and starts questioning what people like them have believed for years. Because of this, Kasan concludes that Catal is not a normal barbarian. Minutes later, Catal suggests that they keep moving, believing that they have all had enough rest. None of them can disagree with this as they immediately start moving. Not long after this, they find a treasure chest, which is one of the rewards in the dungeon. Kasan mentions that they are free to take it if they can unlock the chest. Kasan then has an internal monologue with himself, talking about how hard it is to unlock a chest of that level. With the type of chest that he is looking at, he believes that it is going to take a thief of high expertise to unlock. Kasan concludes in his head that they would have to give up on the treasure chest. Just then, Catal asks him to unlock it. Kasan is shocked when he hears this, reminding Catal that they are staring at a treasure chest. Catal replies that he is not blind, and since Kasan is a thief, it is his job to unlock it. Kasan knows that Catal is right, but there is a problem. He doesn't have the skills to unlock a chest with this level of protection because if he did, he would be ranked high among the thieves. However, Kasan is scared to death to tell Catal the truth that he is arse at being a thief. He believes that Catal will just kill him if he fails. Scared of what might happen, Kasan proceeds to give it a try. While unlocking the chest, Kasan can see Catal staring at him from behind, and he figures out that it is a game of life or death for him. The moment he fails, he assumes that he is done for. Kasan starts to rack his head. He thinks about all the times he has followed his boss on a raid. He replays everything in his head, trying to find a way through. Since his life depends on it, Kasan puts his all into trying to unlock the chest. After some minutes of working on the chest, Kasan finally unlocks it, and he couldn't be happier or relieved. Every member of the party is impressed with Hayes talking about how only skilled thieves unlock the treasure chests. She is glad that she got to see it in person. Ketil also praises Kasan, telling him that he did a good job. To Kasan, he is in shock because he should not have been able to unlock the chest. But it turns out that he was always able to do it since his survival depended on it. Kasan then realizes that he has not been maxing out his potential all this time. Ketil then asks his party members how much they think the value of the chest is. Hayes reveals that the contents of the chest are enough to feed a family for at least a month while living luxuriously. Ketil then tells Kasan to arrange the valuables, to which he quickly responds. While gathering the loot, Kasan's instinct as a thief wants to kick in, but hearing Ketil's voice brings him back to reality. Shortly afterward, they run into a bunch of skeletons. Since there are 4 skeletons, Ketil tells his teammates that he is going to handle 3 of the skeletons while leaving one to them. The trio accepts the task, and it dawns on them that they are about to get into a real fight. Kasan watches as the skeletons assemble themselves, and it creeps him out. The skeletons come charging at them, and the party members prepare to engage. They take on one of the skeletons while Ketil holds down the other 3 so that they won't interfere in the fight. He watches as the trio fight the last skeleton. The trio uses coordinated attacks against the skeleton, trying to take it down. While they are fighting the one skeleton, Ketil has casually crushed the other 3 without even realizing it. However, he is glad that he is witnessing how a proper party should move. He stands back to enjoy the fight between the skeleton and his party members. The trio soon realizes that Ketil is testing them. It dawns on them that showing any sign of weakness means that they get to die. The fear of death pushes the trio to their limit, and after several attempts, they finally take down the skeleton. Judging from the fight he just watched, Ketil realizes that the mercenaries who came through the snowfield 5 years ago are pretty decent fighters. The trio advances into the dungeon and soon gets to the 3rd floor where the skeleton monsters increase. However, the party had no issue going through since they had Ketil leading the charge. Finally, they reach the deepest chambers of the dungeon where the final boss resides. They are met with a skeleton knight, and this shocks the party members. Fear grips them because a skeleton knight is a high-level boss and shouldn't be in such a dungeon. Ketil asks if the skeleton knight is stronger than the ones they have fought, and they tell him yes. Hayes knows that only a warrior at a knight's level can stand a chance against a skeleton knight. She believes that they have no chance against the monster, and Ketil asks them what will happen if they turn back without clearing the dungeon. They reply that the territory usually conducts an investigation, and once they find out that their reason is valid, they come to do the cleanup. Ketil hears this and smiles. He immediately walks toward the skeleton knight as it already has his interest piqued. Ketil is impressed with the fact that the skeleton can maintain its form without breaking apart like the others. The knight takes its pose and swings its sword, releasing a massive shockwave. Hayes senses the danger and immediately puts up a barrier to protect her teammates. Even with the shield that Hayes put up, the party still feels the effect of the skeleton's attack. This exhausts the party members, causing them to fall to the ground. Tyrannus is shocked that the knight only hit them once, and it caused that much damage. Just then, the skeleton knights charge at them with clear intentions of wiping them out. However, Kettle stands there unfazed, and just as the knight reaches him, he lands a single punch that immediately crushes the skeleton knight. Kassan and the others are left in shock. Even when Kettle asks them if they have cleared the dungeon, they are too stunned to speak. They find another treasure chest, and Kettle asks Kassan if he can open it. Kassan comes clean, telling Kettle that the treasure chest is protected with a high-level lock, and he can't disarm it with his skills. Kassan suggests that they ignore the treasure chest, but he hasn't finished his statement when Kettle crushes the chest with his fist. Once again, the party members are left in disbelief. Kettle then tells Kassan to clean up the treasures. Kassan walks toward the treasure chest while wondering how Kettle is able to break it open. It is something he has never heard of in the past, but he wonders why Kettle told him to unlock it when he could easily break it. After gathering the treasures, the party exits the dungeon. The moment they step out, the dungeon disappears, and Kassan explains that dungeons usually disappear once it is cleared. The dungeon only remains if there is a secret room, but since the dungeon they cleared disappeared, there seems to be no secret rooms. Kettle hears about the secret room and adds it to his list of interesting things. They return to the guard post where the captain is shocked that the team has already cleared the dungeon. He then takes each member of the team into a waiting room to interview them one after the other. He asks Hayes if Kettle can stay in the territory, and she says yes, since she didn't notice any problem with him. The captain, on the other hand, is not really concerned about the clearing of the dungeon, but about being able to screen out dangerous individuals. Tyrannus and Kassan also tell the captain the same thing about Kettle. When Kettle is asked about his party members, he praises them, talking about how they each contributed to the success of the mission. The captain is shocked at this because random party members who have entered the dungeon in the past don't end up praising each other. After looking at all the information, the captain tells them that they are free to enter the territory. He hands them each a permit, telling them that they will be expelled if they ever cause trouble. In addition to this, they are given a reward for clearing the dungeon. He urges them to divide the reward among themselves. Kettle thanks the captain for the reward, and he turns to his party members, telling them that they are going to divide the reward equally. Hayes and the other two nervously tell Kettle that they are fine with not receiving anything, but Kettle insists since they all cleared the dungeon together. Realizing that Kettle is not going to back down, the trio accepts. After sharing the reward, Kettle suggests that they find a tavern where they can have fun. Kassan and the other two have no choice but to accept, but deep down, they just want to run away from this monster of a man. As the party members walk away, the captain of the guard thinks over what the party members told him. He admits that Kettle is really strong since he was able to one-shot a skeleton knight. With what he can see, he figures out that Kettle is at least on a knight's level of strength, and he is also not the typical barbarian. He considers Kettle to be an anomaly among the barbarians and even humans. The captain realizes that things might be more serious than he thinks, and he decides to go report to the lord of the territory. The captain arrives at the lord's castle where he meets the ruler in charge of the territory, Luke. The captain goes straight to the point, telling Luke that a barbarian has entered their territory. Luke asks the captain if he was the one who gave the barbarian permission to enter, and he says yes. He assumed that Kettle was not going to be a problem, but after learning how strong he is, the captain believes that Kettle might actually be a problem. Luke asks the captain how strong Kettle is perceived to be, and he reveals that Kettle took down a skeleton knight with just one hit. Even Luke is surprised when he hears this since he knows how strong skeleton knights can be. Looking at all the factors, Luke categorizes Kettle as a first-rate warrior, and the captain agrees with this. The captain adds that there is the possibility of Kettle being stronger than a first-rate warrior. After a quick thought over it, Luke tells the captain to summon Kettle. The captain is shocked, and he asks Luke if he is going to be fine being around the barbarian. Luke tells the captain that having Kettle roam their territory alone poses a big risk. Luke wants to physically assess the situation himself. When the captain points out how dangerous it is to have Kettle in the same room, Luke reminds the captain that he has his own knight to protect him. Standing behind him is his fierce knight, and when Luke asks the knight what he thinks, the knight boastfully tells Luke that he has nothing to worry about since Kettle is no more than a barbarian. Since he possesses great swordsmanship skills, which he learned from the great master, he believes that Kettle stands no chance. Once Luke gets the assurance from his knight, he urges the captain to summon Kettle because he would like to speak to him. Meanwhile, Kettle and his party members are at a tavern. Kettle is the only one eating and having fun since the other three are so nervous to even be in his presence. Kettle talks about how good the food is, and he suggests that the trio eat whatever they want, assuring them that all the bills are on him. Even with this, the trio is still not comfortable. Kettle then turns to Tyrannus, asking him what sort of holy power he uses since he didn't see him use any during the dungeon raid. Tyrannus comes clean, telling Kettle that he is still in training, which is why his divine power hasn't awakened yet. Kettle then moves from Tyrannus to Hayes. He asks her about the said god that she is serving. Hayes reveals that there is no temple that they can worship since the deity is not exactly popular. The deity is in control of lies and deception, which is why she is rejected by the masses. Hayes then throws in a strange question, asking Catal how strong he is. Catal is thrown back with the question, and he tells his party members that he doesn't have an idea since he has always been in the white snowfield. Kettle tells teammates that he is also curious to know how strong he is. Hayes then assumes that Kettle is a first-rate warrior since he was able to take on the skeleton knight easily. Just then, the shop owner shows up, nervously telling the party members that the shop is about to close for the day. Catal apologizes for taking too long and assures the shop owner that they are leaving. After leaving the tavern, Catal asks his party members if they have any plans. In unison, the trio tells him that they are very busy. Catal is disappointed when he realizes that it is goodbye. He wishes that they would meet again someday, but the trio prays that they won't. Kettle then retires at an inn, and he gets a comfortable bed. He has missed sleeping on a bed for so long, since the snowfield is nothing but harshness. Catal has been surviving in the harsh environment of the snowfield, but now that he has found himself in civilization, he just wants to experience and have more feel for how things are. He plans to go on an adventure. On his list is the Elven Sanctuary, the Magic Tower, and even the Royal Capital is not off his list. Catal sleeps like a baby for the night, and he wakes up to the captain of the guard knocking on his door. He walks up to the captain, asking him if there is any problem. The captain coughs to pull his confidence together, and he then reveals that Catal has been summoned by the Lord of the Territory. Catal is shocked to hear this, and he considers it an honor. He immediately agrees to meet the Lord. He tells the captain that he is just going to get his clothes so that they can leave, but the guard is utterly stunned. He didn't think it would be that easy to get Kettle to follow him, and he started to wonder if he had come to the wrong place. Kettle walks through the streets in amazement, since this is the first time he will get to see the territory during the day. Minutes later, they arrive at the castle, where the Lord of the Territory is already waiting for them. Luke welcomes Catal and stretches his hand to shake Catal's. Surprisingly, Catal takes his hand and also bows to him in respect. Luke cannot believe that a barbarian bowed his head. Barbarians are known to never bow their heads because strength is everything to them. Luke tries to hide his shock and he tells Catal to take his seat. Catal sits down and he looks around at how beautiful everything is. Just then, he notices Luke's guard and how serious the dude is. Catal has always loved knights since he was a kid, but staring at the knight, he realizes that he is emitting serious killing intent. Luke calls Catal's attention back to reality when he tells him that there is a reason why he called him. Luke informs Catal that there are things he wants to confirm about him. Kettle urges Luke to ask him anything he feels like. Luke asks Kettle where he came from, and Kettle replies that he came from the coldest place in the entire world, which is the White Snowfield. Hearing this, Luke confirms that Catal is truly a barbarian. Catal adds that the snowfield is a very dangerous place. Luke then asks Catal how strong he is. Luke wants to know how threatening Catal's power is. Catal then tells Luke that he can't answer the question since he doesn't know the power rankings on the outside. Since his power cannot be ascertained, Luke suggests that Catal spar his knight. Luke promises that Catal will be rewarded if he agrees. Luke further adds that it is not going to be a life or death match, and Catal agrees to the proposition. He is excited that he wants to have a sparring session with a knight. And this is not just any knight, but a knight in the fantasy world. Catal cannot pass up the chance to witness what a knight can do firsthand. After Catal agrees to the deal, Luke realizes that Catal is just like the other barbarians who will not shy away from a fight. Catal and the knight then proceed to the arena where the match is going to take place. Once everything is in place, Luke tells the two to get down to the match. The knight boastfully tells Catal that he should consider himself a lucky person since he wants to witness his greatness. The knight soon realizes that Catal is relaxed, and he is even smiling. This pisses him off, and he charges toward Catal, promising to show him the difference in their skill level. He unleashes a sword skill that leaves Catal ultimately surprised. Kettle tries to figure out the type of sword skill that the knight is using, but can't seem to. He initially thinks the three swords aiming for him are illusions, but he soon gets rid of that assumption. Even with how potent the skill is, Catal easily dodges. The knight considers this an impressive feat, but he still has more in his arsenal to unleash. Before he can make any more moves, Kettle easily grabs his sword and breaks it. The knight is still trying to figure out what amazing power he just witnessed when he is grabbed by Catal. Kettle punches him in the chest, shattering his armor and throwing him into the wall. With just a strike, Kettle knocks Luke's best knight out of commission, leaving Luke himself stunned. Luke is left to wonder just how strong Catal can be. Kettle turns to look at him and he asks if the duel is over, to which he says yes. Luke concludes that Catal's power is easily at a superhuman level since he was able to easily take down a high-level knight. However, he is left to wonder just how strong Catal is since he wasn't even trying. Without a doubt, he knows Catal has what it takes to tip the balance of the world. Realizing how dire the situation is, Luke believes that it is time to inform one of the very people that he knows who has gained the title of Swordsmaster. Speaking of the devil, the said Swordsmaster shows up in Luke's chambers. The Swordmaster is a respectable and feared old man named Cain. Cain takes an interest in what Luke has to say, and he demands further explanation. Luke stands up to greet the Swordsmaster out of respect, and he humbly welcomes him even though he invited him on such notice. Luke then takes Cain to the room where the defeated knight is recovering. The knight apologizes to Luke for messing up, but Cain enters the room, telling the knight not to apologize, as he is to be blamed for everything. He believes that he didn't teach his disciple too well, which is why he lost to an unknown barbarian. Luke takes a better look at the knight and realizes that he didn't sustain any wounds on his chest, even though his armor was completely shattered. Luke then realizes that Catal must have shown restraint so as not to kill the knight. Cain also assesses the situation, and he reveals that Catal is not just a mindless barbarian. He believes that Catal has control over his strength, and he is even precise with it. Cain informs Luke that Catal has surpassed the level of a knight, and he is easily at a superhuman level. Luke then asks Cain how he perceives Catal. Cain admits that Catal might be super strong, but he is confident that there is no way Catal can reach him since he is a swordsmaster. Cain further looks at the knight's injuries and realizes that Catal can't use aura, but he is able to wield such crazy power. He considers this an impossible method with ordinary means, and he assumes that it is the way of the barbarians. Luke then tells Cain that Catal came from the snowfield. Hearing this, Cain thinks Catal is a heteromorph, but he soon trashes the thought. Cain says Catal wouldn't have shown consideration for humans if he were a heteromorph. However, he wonders why a barbarian emerged from the snowfield, and he also questions the timing of everything. Luke realizes that Cain is worried, and he asks him if there is anything wrong. Obviously, there is something wrong, but Cain tells Luke that he will hear of it later. Cain assures Luke that it is not something he needs to worry about in the meantime. He then asks Luke if Catal is still in the territory, and he says yes. Cain then decides to take it upon himself to confirm how strong Catal is. Catal is also given the promised reward for the duel. Luke also tells Catal that he is free to do as he wishes in the territory. Catal reveals that he doesn't have a plan laid out yet, but he would like to have an identity. He knows that entering dungeons in other territories can be an issue if he doesn't have an official identity. The captain of the guard then lets him know that Catal can get someone of high status to vouch for his identity. The other way he can get around this is to become a mercenary. Once he builds up his achievements as a mercenary, he will be recognized by the guild, and his identity will be acknowledged. The captain then reveals that Catal will be treated as a mere errand boy unless he raises his level as a mercenary. The captain assumes that Catal will go with the method of getting a sponsor to vouch for his identity, but Catal shocks him when he picks the option to be a mercenary. Since mercenaries fight monsters and take on other dangerous jobs, Catal is highly interested. He asks the captain where he can go to become a mercenary, and he points him to the mercenary guild. Mercenaries might sound cool on the outside, but they are basically the lowest on the status level. They often die in dangerous dungeons, and they are even subjected to dirty jobs. Because of this, the bottom tier of the mercenary society is always filthy and messy. At the mercenary guild hall, two mercenaries are seen fighting each other while their counterparts are watching. No one tries to separate them, and they are even betting on who is going to win in the end. The attendant, Rosa, is also complaining about how they have been receiving trash recruits. Among the said recruits are Tyrannus and Hayes. Rosa wishes that a handsome knight would just appear out of nowhere to come and register. Rosa's prayers are answered, but instead of a royal princess, Catal is the one who entered the guild. Catal's presence in the hall is immediately felt by everyone, and even the two dumbasses fighting are forced to stop their beef. Catal confidently walks up to Rosa, telling her that he would like to become a mercenary. Rosa is trembling as she faces Catal. She manages to ask Catal why he wants to become a mercenary, and he reveals that he wants to become one so he can get an official status. Rosa lets him know that he is going to need loads of achievements to move up, and Catal assures the assistant that he is fine with that. Rosa asks for his age and name. Catal only gives his name since he has no idea how old he is. Rosa fills in the details, and she decides to go with an approximate age for Kettle. After this, Rosa presents Kettle with his mercenary badge, telling him not to lose it. Without wasting time, Kettle immediately asks to see the requests available since he would like to start immediately. Catal is shocked when Rosa brings out a list of F-rank requests for him. They are low requests like gathering of herbs, basement cleaning, night patrol, and a few. Rosa explains to him that he needs to take on F-rank requests and work his way up. Rosa is trembling while saying this, as she expects Catal to lash out, but to her surprise, Catal just picks one of the tasks. He tells Rosa that he would like to pick the herb gathering task. Kettle asks Rosa where he is going to get the herb, and she lets him know that he will have to go outside the village. She shows Kettle an image of the herb he is expected to gather. Kettle collects the image and excitedly heads out to complete his task. Rosa is shocked at how chill Kettle is. Catal arrives at the location where he is going to find the herbs. He realizes that they are herbs for treating injuries. Without grumbling or complaints, Ketal happily gathers the herbs. He soon returns to the guild an hour later with a bag full of herbs. Rosa is stunned when she sees this since Ketal managed to get even more than required. She assumes that Ketal has been sent to destroy the herb field, but her perception of Ketal changes when she realizes that Ketal actually picked the herbs the right way. Ketal didn't pull the herbs from the roots just like other mercenaries would do. Rosa thanks Ketal for his hard work and then gives him a silver coin as payment for his work. Ketal stares at the silver coin, which is not enough to buy a decent meal, but instead of getting mad, he is actually happy because this is his first hard-earned money. Ketal smiles, and it is written all over his face that he is pleased. Ketal tells Rosa that he is satisfied, and he asks to take on another task. Rosa is shocked that Ketal is happy with the reward he got, which is the least thing that she expected. Since the day is still young, Ketal wants to complete as many tasks as he can. Rosa had believed that Ketal was normal, but with this she starts crying that Ketal is just like other weird mercenaries that she has been recruiting. Ketal continues taking on menial tasks, clearing the lists bit by bit. She visits a woman to help clean her warehouse. The woman is shocked by Ketal's arrival, but Ketal ignores her fear and gets down to business. After helping the woman, he jumps on the next task, which is street sweeping. Without hesitation, he picked up a broom and started sweeping. Meanwhile, he is being watched by Kane, who wonders why Ketal is doing menial jobs. He knows Ketal is pretty strong, and just by revealing his power, he can make a good living for himself. He can even change the power scaling of a kingdom, but he's doing menial tasks instead. Kane is even more surprised because Ketal is doing the job with passion. After the day's job, Ketal receives his pay, which is 15 silver coins. Ketal happily accepts the reward, assuring Rosa that he will be back the next day to complete more tasks. The following day, Ketal notices that everyone has their eyes on him. Even kids cry just by looking at Ketal. Ketal then heads to the library. He enters, and as usual, the receptionist is stunned. He asks to read, and the attendant provides him with books that will interest him. Kane is tailing him, but he is being careful not to get noticed by Ketal. He hides behind a shelf to figure out what Ketal is doing, and he wonders why a barbarian known to be crude and savage is reading books. Ketal picks up some history books, where he finds out that the Empire won the battle 5 years ago. Since then, the Empire has become dominant and has taken over the kingdom of Barkan as a vassal state. There are still some kingdoms to be conquered, but the Empire seems to be moving at a great pace to take over the world. After he is done looking into history, he decides to learn more about the fantasies of that world. The world possesses the dwarven tunnels, which are overflowing with expensive ones. There is also Pisarapia, the fairy village. Lagameria is the sky city home to the Celestials. He also learns in the book that Elfo Sagrado belongs to the elves, but no one has been able to find it. It is just as Marceria told him, but now he possesses the ability to go if he wants to. Just then, he realizes that there are other places like the White Snowfield. These are the demonic realms, and they don't entertain human presence. These realms are filled with very scary creatures, but 5 of these realms are the vast ones. One of them is the silent forest that dyes everything in stillness. There is the abyss that drags the world into evil. There is also the deep sea, but this place is strange enough for primates to still breathe. And there is the bottomless hole where nothing exists. Then there is the White Snowfield. Beings living in the demonic realms are regarded as the others. They are very strange and powerful, but humans are lucky that they can't cross over. Ketal is surprised to learn about this. He knows the White Snowfield on itself is very large, and to think there are other places like it blows his mind. After gathering all the info that he can, Ketal stands up to leave. He thanks the receptionist, who deep down is just glad that Ketal is finally leaving. Ketal heads back to the guild to ask Rosa if there are any assignments for the day. Rosa is happy to present him with the assignment sheet for the day. Meanwhile, Kane is still watching Ketal, and he now sees him as a strange person. Kane decides that the best way to know more about Ketal will be to meet him in person. Later that evening, Ketal is on his way home when he is ambushed by Kane. Ketal doesn't look surprised since he knows that Kane has been tailing him all day. On the other hand, Kane is shocked to his bones since he hid his presence with aura, which is supposed to make him invincible. Kane is left to wonder how Ketal noticed him since people with the best instincts are not even supposed to catch a wind of him. Ketal asks Kane what he wants from him, and before Kane can even talk, Ketal jumps to the conclusion that the old man is a bandit. Ketal waits a moment, but when he doesn't get a response from Kane, he cements the idea that Kane is a bandit. Kane subtly speaks out, telling Ketal that he is not a bandit, and he wonders if Ketal will back down if he learns that he is a swordsmaster. However, Ketal is already fixated on the fact that Kane is a bandit who needs to be taken in. In fact, he is already thinking about the achievement he will be given by taking in Kane. Realizing that Ketal is not going to back down, Kane decides to use the opportunity to test out his strength. Kane prepares to engage Ketal, but suddenly, Ketal vanishes and appears behind him. Ketal tries to grab Kane, but in the last second, Kane manages to move. Kettle smiles, acknowledging the fact that Kane is fast. On the other hand, Kane is terrified since he almost got caught. He knows that Kettle would have caught him if he had moved a bit slower. However, he is more shocked that Kettle is not using aura, but he is still extremely fast. Kane decides that he is no longer going to test Kettle, but is going to go all out against him. Kane charges at Kettle, but before he even gets the chance to do anything, Kettle easily grabs him. Kane tries to move but realizes that he is not just being grabbed, but the feeling he is getting is that he is thrown between rocks and can't move. Kane screams in pain while gnashing his teeth. He realizes that he can't even win in a contest of strength against Kettle. Since it has come to this, Kane resorts to releasing his power. This sudden burst of force is enough for him to break free. Kettle still doesn't feel threatened but only smiles at the amazing technique that Kane used. He teases Kane, comparing him to a bandit and how they have somehow developed several techniques. Kane cannot believe that Kettle is comparing his manifestation of mana to that of a bandit. Kane wonders how Kettle is still standing since he just hit him with a massive force of mana that is enough to break through solid steel. Kane is blown away by the fact that there is no single scratch on Kettle. At this point, Kane is worried since he has never seen anyone defend a mana attack with just their bare body. Kettle, on the other hand, decides that it is time to finish their little play. Kane also prepares to draw his sword, but before he can, Kettle reaches him and pushes back the sword with just a finger. This finally does it for Kane, as he cannot believe that Kettle is stopping him from using his sword with just a finger. Kane is trying with his whole strength to pull the sword, but Kettle is not even trying. Kane finally gives in, and Kettle just grabs him like he is some baby. Kettle is disappointed in how weak bandits are, not knowing that he just took down someone who is a swordsmaster. Well guys, that's the end of the video. If you like this video, comment part 2 in the comment section. Also subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and like the video. Thank you for watching and see you next time again. Moments later, Kettle arrives at the security post, carrying Kane with him. The captain of the guards is shocked to see the Grandmaster being held like he is a baby. A lot is going through his head as he cannot ascertain if Kettle attacked the swordsmaster. He is totally blown away when Kettle addresses Kane as a thief that he caught. Kettle tells the captain that he is there to hand Kane over so he can increase his mercenary achievements. It starts to dawn on the captain what is currently happening. He realizes that the swordsmaster, who is at the top of the food chain, got himself captured by a barbarian. To make it even worse, Kettle captured him in the worst possible way. The captain finally pulls himself together and he tells Kettle that the person he is holding is not a thief. Kettle still looks confused when the captain says this. He gets more confused when the captain bows his head to Kane, revealing that he is the only swordsmaster in the kingdom of Gehenthra. Kettle still doesn't figure things out, as he believes that swordsmaster is a title given to a thief. Kettle starts arguing with the captain, telling him that the person he is holding cannot be a swordsmaster since he attacked him to take his money. Meanwhile, Kane just remains silent as he is too embarrassed to even say anything. The captain and Kettle continue arguing on whether the person Kettle is holding is a wizard, using a spell to disguise himself. After a back and forth, Kettle finally realizes that Kane is truly a swordsmaster. The captain then leaves to report the situation to Luke. Luke is ultimately shocked when he learns that Kane lost to Kettle. Kettle and Kane are now sitting in a room while trying to avoid eye contact because of their embarrassing moment together. Luke enters the room to find such an awkward sight. Luke expected Kane to take on Kettle, but he never thought he would lose. Luke comes to the bitter realization that Kettle is stronger than the swordsmaster. Luke tries to find comfort in the fact that Kane recently became a swordsmaster. He believes that Kane's rank is low among other superhumans, which is why he easily lost to Kettle. However, he is still baffled by the fact that Kettle could take on someone who is at the pinnacle of swordsmanship. Luke realizes that the two need some space to discuss, and he excuses himself from the room. Kane thinks about the whole thing and realizes how embarrassing it is for him. His pride is shattered, but there is no way he can even try to fix it. Kane finally breaks the silence in the room when he introduces himself. He mentions that he is a swordsmaster, and Kettle asks if swordsmaster is his surname. He explains that anyone who reaches the title of being a swordsmaster automatically loses their surname because it doesn't hold meaning again. Kettle then asks him if the technique he used is particular to swordsmasters. Kane realizes what Kettle is talking about, and he tells him that he is wrong. What Kettle saw Kane use was the manifestation of mysticism, which is also called aura. This immediately piques Kettle's interest, and he wants to learn more. He asks Kane how he can use aura just like he said. Kane then explains that Kettle would have to control aura and manifest it if he is to use it. Kettle then asks if mysticism is mana, but Kane explains that mysticism is the embodiment of mystical energy itself. The art of handling mysticism as a swordsman is what births aura, but for a mage, it becomes mana. Kettle smiles when he realizes that both swordsmen and mages have what it takes to handle mysticism. Just then, Kettle asks Kane if he can teach him how to use mysticism since he is still new to the techniques of that world. Kane is shocked when he hears this, since Kettle is obviously stronger than he is. Catal admits that he doesn't know anything about mysticism or swordsmanship. He is basically swinging his sword around with no skill. Cain hears this and tries to find solace in the fact that he didn't draw his sword when he fought Catal. He believed that he would have shown Catal how to properly wield a sword. Since he is trying to restore his shattered pride, Cain agrees to teach Catal how to properly wield a sword. Catal then mentions that he is weak because he can't use a sword. Cain cannot believe that Catal considers himself to be a weak person, but he goes with the flow, agreeing with what Catal said. Catal then continues by saying Cain would have had a better chance against him if he had allowed him to use his sword. He even believes that Cain would have won, but deep down, Cain knows that using his sword or not, he stands no chance against Catal's strength that he witnessed during their encounter together. However, he hopes to restore his pride by teaching Catal proper swordsmanship. Cain begins his lesson by telling Catal that his swordsmanship solely relies on illusion and reality. He asks Catal what he perceived when he fought his disciple, the knight. Catal reveals that the knight's sword strike split into 3, and each attack was real. Catal then figures out that Cain's style is one that focuses on technique and not brute strength. Cain affirms Catal's deductions, and he adds that swordsmanship is the art of merging the sword with aura to wield mysticism. Those who have reached the top of that art are called swordsmasters just like him. Since Catal is a newbie, and he might not understand everything he is saying in theory, Cain decides that a practical example will be the best way forward. Cain makes his stance and releases a sword slash imbued with his technique. The sword strike splits into 5 and damages the ground. Cain explains that the illusions might be fake, but his techniques make them real, which is something only his sword style can do. After seeing what Cain did and his technique, Catal tells the old man that he can also do it. As usual, Cain is shocked as he believes that Catal is talking nonsense. Cain has been working on his technique his entire life, and he is confident that Catal cannot just copy it from seeing it once. Catal realizes that Cain doesn't believe him, and he decides to show him instead. Cain brings out his axe, makes his stance, and swings his axe so fast that he creates a bigger level of damage than Cain's technique. Cain is left stunned by this. Cain is able to assess the situation, and he figures out that Catal might have copied his technique, but he was able to do that using his overwhelming strength and speed. Cain then tells Catal that all he did was swing his axe so fast, but there was no technique involved. Catal is confused, and he argues with Cain. Since the technique is meant to be used in combat, Catal believes that he managed to achieve the desired result even though he took the same route as Cain. Upon hearing this, Cain realizes that Catal is not actually wrong with his take. Cain wants to do something that Catal will not be able to, and he proceeds to show another technique. This time around, Cain splits his body into several parts, just like the way he did with the sword. Cain explains that the technique he used is body separation, which is created by controlling his aura to its last limit. Cain then asks Catal if he can also copy the technique he just showed him. Catal accepts the challenge and he steps back before moving his body so fast, just like Cain did. By doing this, he split his body just like Cain did and even left more devastating damage than Cain did. Cain is left in shambles, as he cannot believe that everything he worked for a lifetime was replicated in seconds. He falls to his knees in despair, and Catal teases him for being mentally fragile. However, Catal decides to lift Cain's spirit. He tells Cain that his swordsmanship is amazing. Catal admits that he can't do what Cain is doing because all he did was swing his axe really fast, but didn't imbue Cain's technique in it. Catal admits that he can never reach the top level of mysticism that Cain has gotten to. After hearing this from Catal, Cain pulls himself together with the belief that his technique is unique to him and him alone. He realizes that his swordsmanship is perfect. The only problem is that he went up against someone who is way out of his league. Cain is still confused by the fact that Catal is moving so fast without using aura. This is something that should be beyond human limits, but Catal is doing it so easily. Just then, Catal asks for something really shocking. He begs Cain to teach him how to properly use his technique. Cain agrees, and he tells Catal that to properly use his technique, he needs to learn how to control aura. However, to do this, Catal will have to figure out how the mystery works. Cain says there is no mage or swordsman who can get to the top without having a good understanding of the mystery. However, there are a few exceptions, and these are those who believe in gods. Their belief helps them bypass this compulsory factor. Catal then figures out that divine power is different from other powers. Cain reveals that those with divine power get their powers directly from the gods. Cain further explains that mystery is the mysterious power within humans. However, it is up to humans on how they use it. Trying to explain what the mystery is, Cain reveals that there are 5 stages. The basic stage is the detection of mystery, which allows the sensing and realization of mystery. Catal then asks if everyone can feel the mystery, but Cain says no. The mystery can only be felt by gifted people. Those who are able to sense the mystery are called third-rate. Just like Melina explained to him 5 years ago, Cain explained again. Cain tells Catal that there are 5 levels. and these are the third-rate, second-rate, first-rate, superhuman, and hero levels. Kane then adds that the power gap between each level is significantly huge. Since Ketal has no sense of mystery whatsoever, Kane wants them to start with the first stage, which is mystery detection. Kane tells Ketal to max out his senses so he can feel everything around him. From the touch of the earth to the shifting in the wind, Kane tells Ketal to feel everything. Ketal sits down to meditate and follow all of Kane's instructions. But after a few minutes, Ketal comes clean, telling Kane that he doesn't feel anything. Kane is shocked to hear this since he believes that someone as strong as Ketal would easily be able to sense it. Kane starts to wonder if Ketal is an exception because of where he came from. Kane tells Ketal that it might not be easy for him to release the mystical right from the start. Kane offers to push power directly into him and guide him along the path of mysticism. Ketal is immediately excited when he hears that Kane is about to transfer aura into him. He urges the old man to get down to it quickly. Kane stands up and stands behind Ketal to get started. Just as he touches Ketal, Kane is stunned. Instead of feeling a body, what he feels is solid rock. He cannot believe that human muscles can be so compressed that they feel like solid rock. Ketal notices that Kane is not doing anything, and he calls his attention back to him. Kane then begins the process of transferring aura into Ketal. He plans to awaken the dormant mysticism in his body. Kane is confident that this is not a difficult process, and he can easily get it done. Just then, Kane realizes that he has hit a brick wall. In fact, Kane figures out that it is worse than he thought. In trying to reach Ketal's mysticism, Kane feels like he is in a deep sea with no end in it. Kane finally comes to the conclusion that there is no way he can awaken Ketal's mysticism. Ketal asks if he has no talent, but Kane assures him that it is not the case. Kane tells Ketal that he will need to find his own path and awaken his dormant power by himself. Kane informs Ketal that he couldn't find the path in his body. Ketal is worried that he cannot sense mysticism at all, but Kane lets him know that this is not the case. Kane tells Ketal that he couldn't confirm the basis of mysticism in his body. Kane puts it into perspective for him, telling him that his body is exceptional. He tried filling it with aura, but it didn't reach anywhere. Even Kane is blown away because this is the first time he will be witnessing such. Ketal is disappointed in the entire process, as he now believes that he might not be able to use mysticism since a swordsmaster couldn't help him. Kane then suggests that Ketal visit other swordsmasters who are better at handling aura, or he can even visit the magic tower. Kane apologizes that he couldn't help, but Ketal doesn't take offense. He assures Kane that he might not have gotten his desired result, but he was able to learn a lot from their time together. Ketal thanks Kane for his help, leaving Kane in a state of mystery. He wonders why Ketal is so different from the other barbarians that he has met in the past. Kane then tries to play his hand. He asks Ketal if he is interested in settling down in the kingdom. Kane tells Ketal that he would be given a title if he pledges loyalty to the kingdom. But without thinking twice, Ketal refuses the offer. He tells Kane that he is not interested in pledging his fealty to anything or anyone. Ketal basically wants to be a free bird so he can do whatever it is he wants. Kane knows how powerful Ketal is, and he wishes that he could get him to support the kingdom so that they can have a chance against the Empire. Kane reminds Ketal that he will be given a title, but Ketal sternly maintains his stance and Kane immediately backs off. Ketal then thanks Kane for his assistance, assuring him that he won't forget how he tried to help him. After their conversation, Kane walks through the hallway thinking about how foolish he is that he thought he could control Ketal into doing what he wants. With what Kane has seen, he is confident that no one can influence Ketal. He is a man of his own and will only do what he wants. Kane believes that Ketal might even be more dangerous than the other barbarians who came from the demonic realm, since Ketal came from the White Snowfield. Kane then holds a meeting with Luke. He tells him about the Emperor's desire to conquer the demonic realm, which has claimed the lives of several scouts. Kane urges Luke to be prepared in case he gets an Imperial summons in the future. Kane mentions how a lot of strange things have been happening, from the Emperor trying to conquer the demonic realm to the news of the demons making a move. Kane reveals that dungeons are appearing at an abnormal rate, and it seems the demonic realm is slowly seeping into the human world. Kane knows that something mysterious is happening, and with the way it is going, he is confident that it is not something that would benefit humanity. To top it all off, a strange barbarian has walked into their midst. However, Luke and Kane are relieved that Ketal doesn't appear to be an enemy yet. Ketal continues with his day-to-day activity, and one morning, he decides to figure out why people are always staring at him. Ketal comes to the conclusion that everyone is always staring at him because he is not wearing a proper outfit. Since everyone is wearing proper civilized clothes and he is wearing animal hides, Ketal assumes that they consider him a weirdo. However, Ketal is basically misunderstanding the entire situation and couldn't comprehend that his presence alone causes people to stare at him. Ketal then heads to a clothing store to try and get himself a new outfit. As expected, the shop owner almost fainted when Ketal entered the shop. Ketal wants to buy himself a new outfit, but the shop owner tells him he doesn't have anything that can fit him. He then offers to make him a custom outfit. Katal agrees to the shop owner's offer, but at the same time, the shop owner is worried that Katal will just kill him if the outfit he makes doesn't suit his taste. Katal leaves the shop, promising to come back once the outfit is done. On his way to the guild, Katal finds a weird glowing bead on the road. He picks it up with the intention of asking Rosa about it. He arrives at the guild, and he shows Rosa the bead. Rosa picks it up to get a better look. Just by touching it, Rosa reveals that it was carefully polished by someone. As she continues to dig into it, Rosa suddenly zones out. Katal is quick to notice this, and he snaps her out of it. Katal asks her if she is fine, and she says yes. Katal lets her know that she was weirdly drawn to the bead, but Rosa didn't even know this. Rosa then mentions the strange energy coming from the bead. She wants to appraise it, but Katal tells her not to. He lets her know that he will dig into the bead by himself. Katal then asks Rosa if there are job requests that he can work on. As usual, she brings out the list of tasks that Katal can easily pick from. That night, Katal lies on his bed, reminiscing about the fulfilling day that he had. His attention comes back to the bead as he wonders what it is. While staring at the bead, he suddenly hears a voice from inside the bead. The voice gives Katal instructions on where to go. Excited to see what or who is behind the bead, Katal leaves his room. He soon finds himself in a dark cave, and upon entering, he can hear the voice getting excited that another sacrifice has come to him. The voice is glad that he managed to get his hands on a barbarian, as this would be sufficient for what he wants to do. Sitting in the dark cave is a dark sorcerer, talking about resurrection. There was a time in the past when many kingdoms came crashing down. The person behind this chaos was an evil sorcerer who manipulated everyone by messing with their emotions. He got so far with his evil doings until he was discovered and the heroes defeated him. Before he was defeated, he managed to transfer his soul into a life vessel, thus becoming a lich. With this, he achieved immortality that will remain until his life vessel is broken. Since he became a lich, the evil sorcerer has been planning his resurrection. To resurrect himself, he needed lots of human sacrifices, and to get this, he lured in people. His goal is to create a mana core that would be needed for his resurrection, so that he can once again conquer the world with his power. His plan was going smoothly, but now, Katal has somehow entered his hideout. The lich wonders why a barbarian is in the area since they rarely come down from the north. It turns out that the lich placed a spell on the bead to attract those who can't see the mystical presence. Since Kettle has somehow wandered into his domain, he is confident that Kettle can't feel the presence of mystery. Katal opens a giant door and steps into the room where the lich is waiting. Kettle is shocked to see a lich right in front of him. He has always been fascinated by liches as they are considered to be villains in the fantasy worlds. The lich realizes that Katal doesn't seem to be affected by the bead, and he is forced to ask him who he is. It finally dawns on Katal that the lich has been using the beads to lure people into his hideout. The lich remains confused at what is happening since he can't sense any mystical presence in Kettle. Since Katal is not affected by his charm, the lich assumes that he is carrying a mental defense artifact. He adds that the artifact must be a high-grade one since he can't sense it, but he wonders how a barbarian is able to get his hands on such a thing. Katal then tells the lich that he is not with any artifact. The lich doesn't believe this and decides that it is time that he crushes Katal with force. The lich summons his minions, which are skeletons. The skeletons run at Katal, but it all ends the same way it did in the dungeon. Katal takes out the skeletons with just one hit. The lich is surprised at this, but decides to raise more skeletons to take on Katal. He orders his minions to cut Katal down, but all it takes for Katal to take down the skeletons is nothing but a clean punch. In no time, Katal takes out every skeleton that the lich sends his way. In fact, Katal is disappointed because the skeletons are not stronger than the ones in the dungeon. He believed that the lich would at least control the skeletons with his power. The lich is left in total shock, and he decides that it is time to finally crush Katal. Using his amazing power, the lich raises a skeleton knight. Katal is excited to see another skeleton knight in action. He wonders if the skeleton knight will operate just like the one he fought in the dungeon. The skeleton knight runs at Katal, and Katal meets the skeleton halfway with a punch to the middle part of its body. Even though Katal landed a sure hit on the skeleton knight, it managed to survive. Katal is glad that the skeleton knight is much better than the one he fought in the dungeon. The lich is maxing out his mana to make sure the skeleton knight remains functional. The skeleton makes another run at Kettle, and this time, it is faster. This time, Katal aims for the skeleton's head and crushes it with a single hit. The lich is ultimately stunned, leaving him to wonder just who Katal is. He has assessed Katal and realizes that there is no sign of mysticism coming from him. In addition to this, he doesn't think Katal is using any artifact because he would have sensed the mana from it. The lich comes to the bitter realization that Katal is relying on his brute strength. The lich admits that Katal is special, and because of this, he decides to take on Katal himself. The lich unleashes his dark aura, which envelops the entire area. Katal is amazed, but the lich mistakes his amazement for fear. The lich tells Katal to prepare himself to be crushed since he wandered into his domain. Katal argues that he didn't wander, but was invited by the orb he saw. He blames the Lich for this, since he was the one who spread the orb everywhere. The Lich then shuts Kettle up, telling him that he is the great sorcerer, Kartos. He once brought the kingdoms to their knees, and he is ready to do it again. He plans to use Kettle as the cornerstone for his resurrection. Kartos then hits Kettle with a spell that manipulates human emotions. This spell draws out the negative feelings in humans, shattering their minds in the process. Once Kartos believes that Kettle is under his influence, he prepares to take Kettle into his study so that he can know more about him. Kartos orders one of his skeletons to subdue Kettle, but suddenly, Kettle kicks the skeleton into the air, shattering it. Kartos almost pees his pants when he sees this. Kartos doesn't want to believe that Kettle was able to fight off his mind control spell, which should have worked perfectly. Kettle is disappointed in Kartos for sending his minions to their deaths without trying to fight. Kettle tells Kartos that his tactics are pretty boring. Kettle's words pierce Kartos' soul and body. Since humans are creatures that are driven by emotions, Kartos believes that the spell he used on Kettle should have worked. Kettle then suggests that Kartos use fireball magic instead of mind control. This gets Kartos mad as he believes that his magic is superior to the type of magic Kettle is suggesting that he use. Kartos then resorts to a powerful spell. He consumes the entire room in the spell just to make sure that Kettle is completely engulfed. Kartos also used all of his mana to make sure that the spell was successful. He is confident that no matter how strong Kettle is, he definitely fell to his last attack. When the dust clears, Kartos freezes in fear when he sees Kettle standing in front of him, completely fine. Kettle even mocks him, asking him if he has tried everything that he wants to. Kartos is left in a state of shock and horror since the spell he used is the most powerful spell in his book. This is a spell that makes heroes bow down, but somehow Kettle is still standing. Kettle walks up to Kartos, telling him how disappointed he is. He unsheathes his axe as he tells Kartos that it is his turn to bring in the heat. Kartos then starts assuming the wrong things. He says Kettle came specifically to kill him. He believed that the Empire managed to track him down and they sent Kettle to annihilate him. Apparently Kartos heard that there is a facility in the Empire where they train people to be more brutal. Kartos believes that this is where Kettle came from, as he has been specially designed to take him down. However, Kartos is not ready to back down. He plans to kill Kettle and take over the Empire using his body. Kartos' essence then flows from inside his life vessel and settles into Kettle's body in an attempt to take over his body. He plans to use Kettle's body for the rest of his life, but suddenly, Kartos realizes that he is in a mess. Inside Kettle's mental realm, Kartos finds nothing related to the Empire, and to make things worse for him, he doesn't have a space to plant his roots inside Kettle's mind. Not being able to sustain himself inside Kettle's mind, Kartos fades away. Kettle stands there confused and disappointed that Kartos didn't offer him more of a fight since he is supposed to be the final form of a mage. Kettle concludes that the liches in this fantasy world are not that impressive. Since he has defeated Kartos, Kettle decides to pack the rewards in the room. He picks up Kartos' staff and he removes the gem from the staff. Kettle plans to keep the gem to himself and not tell anyone. He also finds a jug that appears to be Kartos' life vessel. He plans to take it back to the guild so that Rosa can appraise it. After Kettle is done gathering all the rewards in the room, he prepares to leave, but he keeps getting the idea that something is off. He decides to take a second look around the room, and this is when he discovers a secret chamber. He breaks through the barrier and enters the chamber. Inside the chamber are people who have been captured by Kartos. However, they all remained motionless, mute since Kartos' spell is in effect. Kettle tries to get them to move, but his attempts fail. Since he doesn't know how to help them, he decides that he will return to the guild and inform them about his discovery. Moments later, Kettle shows up at the guild, holding the rewards he found in Kartos' chamber. Rosa is excited to see Kettle, as she is expecting him to request for tasks, but Kettle reveals that something came up. Rosa becomes curious, and Kettle reveals that the situation that came up is about the orb that he found the day before. He explains everything to Rosa, who immediately doubts his story. Apparently, there are only 5 liches in the world, and she is not confused that one of them would choose to settle close to their territory. Since Rosa doesn't want to believe him, Kettle shows him the life vessel he brought with him and suggests that she appraise it. Rosa appraises the life vessel, and it finally dawns on her that Kettle is telling the truth. Kettle explains further, telling Rosa that there are still people in Kartos' chambers. He lets her know that he couldn't help them, which is why he left them there. This is when it dawns on Rosa that there have been cases of missing persons lately, and they have not been able to find any of them. Rosa realizes that the situation is even more delicate than she thought. She immediately reaches out to the captain of the guard, who runs over on short notice. Kettle assures the captain that there is nothing to worry about since he has taken care of the situation. The captain is horrified when he learns that Kettle went up against the evil Kartos. Everyone knows Kartos as the magician who almost destroyed the world 100 years ago. He developed a spell that messes with emotion, and he used this to cause chaos everywhere. The captain cannot believe that Kartos somehow became a lich, but he is even more surprised when Katal says Kartos is not powerful. Katal also mentions that Kartos self-destructed, but didn't mention the part where he was trying to take over his mind, which is why he self-destructed. The captain wants a detailed explanation, but Katal says there is nothing more to say about it. After hearing everything Katal has to say, the captain heads to the Lord's castle to report to him. The captain explains everything to Luke and also includes the testimony of the already rescued victims from Kartos' chamber. Luke is worried that the Empire might dispatch investigators to check out the territory if they find out that a lich has settled in the territory. He is more worried that everything is going south when Cain is not available. Luke then decides to send a message to the kingdom. Luke and the captain consider the territory lucky because they would have fallen victim to Kartos' wrath if Katal had not discovered his hideout. Luke knows that Katal's deeds deserve an award, but he is not sure if his territory has the resources to provide such an award. The next day, Luke wakes up to the news of something shocking. He is informed that the heretic inquisitor of the sun god, who goes by the name Aquaz, has just shown up in the territory. Luke is shocked to hear this. In panic, he starts to question why Aquaz is in the territory. Later that day, Luke meets with Aquaz. Aquaz thanks Luke for the hospitality even though she didn't inform him beforehand. Apparently, Aquaz is the youngest to hold the title of the sun god inquisitor. She took down 7 warlocks who made pacts with demons, and she by herself stopped a large-scale ritual from happening. She is currently the most formidable inquisitor on the continent. To show how influential she is, even the Empire bows to the sun god's order whenever she is present. She basically transcends every other rank on the continent, leaving Luke to wonder why someone of such status would come to his territory. Aquaz reveals that she heard some interesting things about the territory. Luke assures Aquaz that they have resolved the issue of the dungeon, and he uses this to figure out if she knows about the lich or not. He is relieved when he realizes that Aquaz has no idea about the issue of the lich. Luke then asks the Inquisitor why she is in the territory. Aquaz reveals that she is there to speak to Luke about the Oracle. However, she wants confirmation about the things happening in the territory before she divulges what the Oracle said. Luke then explained everything to Aquaz, including the presence of Katal in the territory. He also mentions the fact that Katal defeated the lich who was Kartos. He shows Aquaz Kartos' life vessel as proof that he is not lying, and this is enough to get the lady's attention. Things are more serious than she anticipated, and he immediately demands to see Katal. Aquaz also learns from Luke that Katal is from the White Snowfield. She is surprised that something from the demon realm has suddenly decided to emerge into the human world. In addition to the fact that Katal defeated Kartos, Aquaz believes that she must have been sent to the territory because of Katal. Meanwhile, Katal is in his room, staring at the jewel he took from Kartos' chambers. He figures that it is some sort of artifact that uses magic, but he doesn't know much about it. He plans to ask any mage he finds about the artifact. Just then, the captain shows up at his door, telling him that Aquaz would like to see him at the church. Katal wastes no time getting himself ready. He joins the captain, and together, they head to the church of the sun god. The captain leaves Katal at the entrance, telling him that someone will guide him once he enters the building. He enters and is welcomed by 3 sisters. They offer to take him to the room where Aquaz is waiting for him. Katal meets Aquaz and they get the introductions out of the way. Katal takes a good look at Aquaz and realizes that she is young but skilled. He smiles after making this deduction, and Aquaz notices, leaving her to wonder why Katal is smiling. Katal then asks the lady why she invited him. Aquaz reveals that she invited Katal because of his encounter with Kartos, the evil one. Aquaz doesn't seem to believe Katal's story, but Katal lets her know that he has no way of proving what he saw and encountered. Aquaz then suggests that they allow the sun god to observe their conversation. Katal is confused by what the lady meant, and she explains that any lie will trigger a negative reaction. Katal realizes that Aquaz is talking about a divine lie detector. Deep down, Aquaz believes that Katal will reject the proposition since this is the way of the barbarians. She then tells Katal that he is free to decline, but Katal shocks her when he reveals that he has no interest in declining. This is a chance for Katal to witness the power of a god, and he is not about to pass it up. He excitedly tells Aquaz that they should start with the process. Aquaz asks him if he is bothered about the suggestion, but he says no. Katal says he is going to get a chance to see a god watch over him, so it is a good deal for him. Katal assures Aquaz that he has nothing to hide and he hasn't told a single lie from the start. Once they are both in agreement, Aquaz proceeds. She recites a chant to invite the sun god to observe the conversation between her and Katal. A bright light appears from above, radiating upon Katal. Katal feels the god's presence from beyond the light, creating different emotions in him. When everything calms down, Aquaz is relieved that there was no negative reaction. She then tells Katal that the real conversation is about to begin while the sun god observes. She lets him know that all lies are forbidden, and Katal assures her that he is ready and on board. Once Aquaz gets a positive reaction, she realizes that Katal wasn't lying, but she assumes that Kartos was unable to use his magic, or else Katal wouldn't have survived. She considers him a lucky dude, And once Katal figures out that she is done with her inquisition, he asks her if she has cleared her doubts already, and she says yes, urging Katal to forgive her rudeness. Katal assures her that he has nothing to be angry about because he enjoyed the entire procedure too. Aquaz then asks Katal if she is free to ask him one more thing, and he assures her that she can. Aquaz proceeds to ask him the burning question in her mind, and this is whether Katal is truly from the White Snowfield. Katal is surprised that she even doubts him in the first place, and he assures her that he is from the Snowfields. Since they are exchanging questions, Kettle tells Aquaz that he also has a question for her. Kettle asks her why she came to the territory, and Aquaz mentions that she has some personal business. Kettle then asks if the said personal business was to confirm that he is an evil person. Aquaz initially tries to play a fool to say she doesn't know what Kettle is talking about, but then she remembers that they are under the gaze of God, and lies are not permitted. She is forced to tell Katal that he is not entirely wrong with his deduction. Aquaz says there was a divine revelation when she arrived in the territory, and she believed Katal was the subject of the revelation. But it turns out that she was wrong. Aquaz apologizes for hiding her intentions from Katal, but Katal doesn't mind because he enjoyed the way everything has been so far. Katal then asks one more thing, and he mentions his curiosity about what the divine revelation said. Even though they are not allowed to share the contents of a divine revelation with anyone they don't fully trust, Aquaz feels the need to tell Katal. Aquaz splits open the hidden divine revelation to Katal, ultimately shocking him. Later on, Aquaz meets with Luke, and he can clearly see that she seems troubled. Aquaz tells Luke that she has met Katal, but her interaction with him only left her even more confused. Luke then asks her what kind of species Katal is, and Aquaz confirms that he is a barbarian from the Snowfield. Luke is surprised to hear this, and Aquaz says she might not have gotten detailed information about the Snowfields, but it is confirmed that he is truly from there. Deep down, Luke was expecting Katal's claim to be a lie, but with Aquaz's confirmation, it appears that he wasn't lying. Luke knows that the world will lose its mind if they ever find out that Katal is truly from the Snowfields, because there are many people who are interested in the Snowfields. Luke is hit with a sense of fear when he realizes just how chaotic things would be if the Emperor decides to make a move. Aquaz then tells Luke that he has nothing to worry about because they are going to handle Kartos' case. And in addition, they are going to make sure that Katal's presence doesn't get to the public. Luke is relieved to hear this, but at the same time, he is worried that all the barbarians in the wastelands are like Katal. He quickly trashes the thought because they definitely would have already left the Snowfields in an attempt to conquer the world. It is common knowledge that barbarians are incredibly strong, but they are dumb upstairs. However, Luke knows how catastrophic it is going to be if the barbarians manage to gain intelligence. Luke then tells Aquaz that he heard about the current king of the barbarians and the fact that he is different. Basically, he is one who has both strength and intellect, and Aquaz says she has only met the barbarian king just once. However, Aquaz confirms Luke's thoughts, saying the king is definitely different from his other gullible subjects. Luke then tells Aquaz that it would be a big deal if Katal and the said king are to meet. Apparently, the relationship between the barbarians and those who serve the gods is shaky, which is why their growing power is concerning. Luke suddenly asks Aquaz about the divine revelation and why she had to meet Kettle alone. Aquaz then replies that she had to confirm something, but this only gets Luke more curious, asking her what she wanted to confirm. Aquaz replies that she needed to know if Katal is human or just a demon pretending to be. Luke asks about the revelation again, and Aquaz finally caves in, telling him about the hidden and powerful revelation. Luke has the same reaction just like Kettle, leaving him to start questioning why something like that would have happened. Later on, Luke meets Katal, and Katal thanks him for the warm hospitality that he has provided for him in the territory. Katal then asks Luke why he summoned him, and Luke mentions that there is something he needs to tell him. However, before that, Luke thanks Katal for keeping the territory safe from Kartos. Luke is pretty sure that the territory would have been wiped out if Kartos had gotten the chance to organize himself. Suddenly, Luke starts to apologize, and Katal wonders why the dude is apologizing to him. Luke drops the bombshell that Katal's achievement against Kartos will not be made known to the public. Apparently, Katal defeating Kartos is a really big achievement. But Luke knows that they can't allow the Emperor to know about this. It is pretty obvious that the Emperor is going to take things into his hands if he ever finds out about this. Luke hopes that Katal will be able to give up his glory for this. Luke is shocked when Katal tells him that he really doesn't care. Luke then informs him that he has prepared a reward for him for saving the territory as a way of apologizing. Just then, a leather pouch is dropped on the table for Katal, and he is informed that it belongs to him. However, Luke assures him that it is not an ordinary pouch, but he would have to check himself to confirm this. Katal opens it, and he realizes that it is a pocket-type artifact where he can store items according to the size of the pocket space. Luke mentions that the space in the pouch is approximately the size of the room they are currently sitting in. Katal is absolutely blown away by the pouch, since it's his first time seeing one in person. Luke explains that even if the item is bigger than the leather pocket's opening, he can still put it in. Luke then decides to test it out by trying to place his giant axe inside the pouch. When trying to put it in, it appears that it would not enter, but suddenly the axe gets sucked into the pouch. Luke then tells him that whenever he wants to take things out of the pouch, he should just think of it. Catal tries it out, and it works just like the way Luke said it would, ultimately shocking him. Luke mentions that the pouch is his reward for saving the territory, and he hopes that Catal likes it. Catal gladly tells Luke that he likes the pouch, and he promises to make sure he puts it to good use. Luke is relieved to hear that Catal likes the pouch, meaning that he has just one thing to worry about. He remembers Aquaz telling him about the revelation. Apparently, a great evil will descend on the territory, and surprisingly, Cain had told him that monsters were appearing out of nowhere. To make it worse, the evil will descend on the territory before spreading to the rest of the world. The Barkan territory has many villages that are organically connected, and because of this, the villages keep in contact with each other. But then suddenly one of the villages stopped responding. People didn't initially notice this, but after a few days of no contact, people were sent from a nearby village to check. The scouts sent to check also didn't return, and the Lord sent guards to confirm what was happening. However, the result remains the same, and then suddenly, the Lord realizes that something sinister is happening. When Catal visits the guild, he learns about the village that lost contact. Catal is told to go there and confirm what is happening, and it turns out that the reward for the mission is quite high. Catal immediately takes an interest in the mission, and he takes the job because of this. When preparing for the mission, Catal surprisingly prepares a new outfit, shocking Hayes. Catal says the one he is wearing is getting torn, and he needs a new one. Hayes compliments the outfit, saying it has a unique design. It turns out that Hayes has come to join Catal on the mission, but he is surprised that the other two members are absent. Hayes tells Catal that they must have intentionally refused the mission, since it was communicated to them. Catal also notices that other adventurers going on the mission are quite few, unlike what he was expecting, since the reward money is huge. He takes a head count, and he realizes that there are not even up to 10 adventurers opting for the mission. Hayes then tells him that the mission is a bit difficult, and Catal is shocked to hear this. Catal says the mission is pretty simple, and Hayes agrees with him, but the rumors about guards going and not coming back make things complicated. Kettle then says no matter how difficult and dangerous the mission appears to be, he was expecting at least 10 people to show up. This is when Hayes mentions that there is another rumor that has surfaced. In a shocking turn of events, it appears Aquaz will be accompanying them on the mission. Because of this, most adventurers backed out because they were obviously scared of her. Even Hayes is scared that Aquaz might just smash her head open, but Catal assures her that she has nothing to worry about because Aquaz is actually polite and kind. Hayes is shocked by the way Catal is complimenting Aquaz, forcing her to ask if he knows the lady, and he says yes. Kettle mentions that Aquaz is his friend, but this further adds to Hayes' shock and disbelief. Just then, the said person of interest shows up, and Kettle addresses her as his friend, but Aquaz burns him, saying she doesn't remember becoming friends with Catal. Catal smiles in embarrassment and finally summons the courage to ask Aquaz if she would like to be his friend. Before giving her answer, she asks Catal if Hayes is a worshipper of the god, Calasia, which is an entirely different god from the one she serves. Catal is shocked when he realizes that Aquaz has easily sensed Hayes' faith. He then asks her if there is any problem with Hayes serving another god, but Aquaz says no, since the followers of Calasia are currently on a rest period. However, those in high-ranking positions can move freely. While Catal and Aquaz are busy discussing this, Hayes stands in the distance, crippled with nervousness. Momentarily, the guard captain shows up to welcome the adventurers who accepted the request. Once he makes sure that everyone is prepared, he suggests that they get a move on. As they make their way to the village, Catal compares it to a raid. He then asks Aquaz if she thinks the time of evil has come, since she has decided to make a move. Aquaz replies that she cannot answer the question because she doesn't have an answer to it. Apparently, her god didn't reveal an exact time when the evil would happen. Aquaz doesn't want to freak out yet because she thinks the village losing contact might actually be a simple issue. However, there is a slight possibility that it is related. Catal, on the other hand, is totally excited about the entire prophecy because he wants to see where it leads. Soon afterward, they arrive at the village, and everything appears normal. Aquaz mentions that she can't sense anything coming from the village, and the captain assumes that the villagers ran away. The captain orders the adventurers to spread out to look for tracks. The captain is pretty sure that there is a clue somewhere because there is no way an entire village disappeared without a trace. Moments later, one of the adventurers runs over to inform the captain that he found food in one of the houses. The captain doesn't think this is a big deal because the villagers might have left it behind before vanishing. However, the adventurer tells him that he is wrong because the food is still warm, as if it has just been prepared. The captain is shocked to hear this, and when he enters the house, it is just as the adventurer said. The captain remembers that contact with the village has been lost for days, and none of the emissaries that were sent came back. The captain then asks the adventurer if there was any sign when he found the food, but he says no. The captain says there is no single sign of people leaving or even hiding. The captain then tells the adventurer to keep looking. It is evident that there are signs of life, but there is no single trace of humans anywhere. Moments later, the captain gets a report from other adventurers, and they inform him that the situation is basically the same everywhere. There is proof that there were humans in the village until recently, but there is no single trace of life. The captain then turns to Aquaz, asking her if she knows anything, and she says no. He also asks Catal, but his answer is the same as Aquaz's. The captain is already going crazy about everything, and Catal suggests that they ask the one close to them. The captain believes he is going mad when he says this, but Catal suddenly mentions that there is someone in the distance, and Catal is surprised that they can't see the said person. Just then, the captain looks harder and realizes that there is a strange woman standing in front of them. This catches the captain's attention because the woman wasn't there when they initially entered the village. The moment the lady senses that she has been found out, she smiles, asking Catal how he was able to see her, since she was under perfect camouflage. Catal tells her that there is no way he is not going to notice the sudden appearance of a stranger. The woman argues with him, saying he is not supposed to even perceive her presence. She mentions that Aquaz wasn't even able to sense her presence, but it was Catal who did. Because of how Catal is able to easily pull this off, the strange lady is forced to ask him who he is. The captain is gripped with fear and he orders everyone to spread around. He turns to see Aquaz frozen in one place with fear, talking about how she senses nothing. This immediately sends fear down to the rest of the group because Aquaz is the inquisitor of the highest existing church, and she was unable to sense anything. This basically means that there are two explanations for it. It's either that the lady is not demonic, or she is of a higher demonic standard that is way above everyone else's level. Just then, the strange lady mentions that she finds Kettle interesting and would have loved to follow him and see his domain. The lady concludes that Kettle is an amusing barbarian, and she immediately transforms into her scary demonic form, while telling Catal of her plan to drag him to hell as her personal slave. She snaps her fingers, and a dark aura envelops the entire area, scaring the entire group to their bones. The other adventurers waste no time turning back to run, but they couldn't, since the demon had placed a barrier around them. She mentions that they are now in her domain, where none of them will be able to escape. She mentions that they are all her prey, but while she is smiling and thinking of how to consume them, the adventurers are panicking. Hayes is pissing her body because a demon is the last thing she expected to see. Catal, on the other hand, is totally clueless because he hasn't seen a demon before. Hayes tells Catal that the demon standing in front of them is dangerous because it even has a name. Hayes immediately starts praying to her god to save her, but Kettle pats her on the head, telling her to calm herself. Kettle assures her that he is by her side, and since he has no idea what Hayes means by a demon with a name, he decides to ask her. Even in their dire situation, Hayes offers to explain. Apparently, not every being called a demon in this world is powerful, since they are all referred to as demons just for the sake of it. In everything, there are only fragments of evil and demonic energy, but there are certain beings who are without a doubt called demons. The demons are born in the dark with no parents, and of their own volition, they claim a name for themselves. Hayes says no matter how weak the demons are, as long as they are with the ones with names, they have more than enough power to make a kingdom tremble. After her explanation, Catal finally puts it all together that the demon in front of them is a named demon. Hayes explains that a demon with horns shaped like the one they are staring at is a Setiar. She was a demon who appeared centuries ago, but Hayes wonders why such a powerful demon would show herself in the remote village. Kettle touches the barrier and notices that it is solid, and Hayes mentions that they can't break it because the entire village is already the demon's territory. Hayes says the only way to get out of their precarious situation is to defeat the demon. Catal finally understands everything, but instead of acting right away, Catal decides that he is just going to watch a bit longer. Hayes is surprised to see Catal joking around when they are all fighting for their lives. On the other hand, Aquaz and Asetiar are having a discussion about their situation. Asetiar smiles while saying Aquaz is supposed to be intrigued with the presence of life in the village, but with no humans. Asetiar mentions that it is a simple demon trick, which is employed in toying with people. Aquaz is visibly pissed, but the demon couldn't care less. While the two are arguing with each other, Catal is busy enjoying the show as if he is on a cinema date with his popcorn in hand. Since it's a named demon, to summon it would have required a bulk load of sacrifice, and it is pretty evident that there is no way a small village would be enough for the sacrifice. The fact that the demon even claimed her territory without anyone noticing is considered basically impossible. Aquaz is left with the desperate question of how the demon was able to descend into the world. Asetiar laughs at Aquaz, letting her know that there is no way she is telling him how she was able to emerge into the world. Aquaz calls Asetiar a filthy dog, but Asetiar has a laugh about it before turning to Aquaz with all seriousness to ask her if she really thinks her god can save her. The demon then tells Aquaz that the world is fracturing already, and it no longer belongs to the humans alone. Apparently, several centuries ago, humans and the gods joined hands to fight against evil, and this resulted in the victory of the gods and humans. The moment the evil was defeated, it was banished from the world. Asetyr then tells Aquaz that she has been waiting for the day she is going to emerge again. Asetyr is known as the demon of gravity, and she plans to start the war all over again. But this time, she is aiming for victory. Aquaz angrily tells Asetyr that she has no right to do this, because the world belongs to humans and the gods alone. Aquaz starts cooking up her magic while urging Asetyr to return to the hell where she emerged. Enraged, Aquaz summons her golden battle armor. She looks absolutely gorgeous in it, but Asetyr is in no way scared to take her on. Without wasting time, Aquaz charges toward the demon and tries to smite her with her weapon, but she dodges while toying with her. The clash between the two leaves the weaklings grabbing their ears in pain. Asetyr then decides to fully play with Aquaz by whipping out her own weapon. Aquaz dashes toward the demon, but before she can even reach her, she suddenly vanishes out of sight. She reappears behind Aquaz and swings her weapon at her, ready to crush her, but Aquaz manages to react just in time to block the attack from coming into fruition. However, her shield feels the intense pressure from Asetyr's attack, and she gets pushed backwards. Realizing that she is about to lose to the demon's immense strength, Aquaz taps into her material powers, the Holy Scriptures, to quote some verses to empower. This increases her strength, forcing Asetyr to retreat. Asetyr is impressed that Aquaz has what it takes to read the Holy Scriptures, even though she is still very young. Aquaz is not ready to slow down as she quotes another verse in the Scriptures to increase her mana output. With the new power pulsing in her, she dashes toward Asetyr in an attempt to strike her down. However, Asetyr leaps backward before launching a counterattack that sends Aquaz on her back. With sweat running down her face, Aquaz can feel the immense strength that the demon possesses. However, she is not done yet, as she resumes her full-on attack mode. The two clash with each other halfway, leaving a huge level of destruction that shatters the ground like a nuke. Even the onlookers feel the intense pressure of the battle unfolding right in front of them. While everyone else is panicking and trying to make it to safety, Katal is enjoying every bit of the moment. Hayes notices how hyped he is, and she suggests that he help Aquaz. Katal admits that it is easy for him to help Aquaz, but he suddenly hits Hayes with the surprising question of why he should help her in the first place. Kettle says he is only going to interfere and ruin the fight, and his words shock Hayes. Katal admits that he also has a strong desire to fight a demon, but he would prefer to observe the fight first. Hayes almost loses her mind when she hears this because everything Katal is saying doesn't even sound right. Meanwhile, the fight between the two drama queens continues, and Asetyr figures out that she has the edge when it comes to raw power, but Aquaz is also tough, thanks to the gods backing her. Suddenly, Aquaz lands a powerful hit that sends Asetyr to her knees, shocking her. Asetyr is forced to make a retreat because she can clearly see that the battle is just going to drag on if she doesn't take things to the extreme. She figures out that she has to use a dark method if she wants to win. Suddenly, she turns away from Aquaz and she dashes toward the helpless adventurers watching the fight in the distance. Before she gets the chance to kill them, Aquaz catches up to her and blocks the attack with her shield. Aquaz is pissed that the demon is trying to take crude ways to get her victory. Asetyr laughs hysterically, asking Aquaz if she was seriously expecting a demon like herself to fight free and fair. This only makes Aquaz angrier, and she taps into another verse from the Holy Scriptures. The verse that she uses creates a protective domain, and she tells the adventurers to enter the domain so that they can be safe. The adventurers waste no time running into the domain, and Asetyr laughs at Aquaz, asking Aquaz if she's really doing the right thing with the Holy Scripture. Aquaz screams at her to keep her mouth shut before dashing toward her with more anger than before. Asetyr also flies toward Aquaz, but just as they are able to hit each other, Asetyr leaps into the air, while telling Aquaz that her efforts are simply going to waste. Asetyr urges Aquaz to get rid of the holy domain that she is using to protect the adventurers if she wants to have a chance at defeating her. Aquaz is shocked by the sudden and stupid request that Asetyr is making of her. Realizing that Aquaz is not ready to cooperate, Asetyr decides that annihilating her is the way forward. Asetyr leaps into the air and finally shows what it means to be serious in battle. She unleashes a dark, powerful aura from her body that overwhelms Aquaz, and while she is trying to stay on her feet, Asetyr dashes toward her. Aquaz almost gets hit, but at the last second she moves out of the way. Asetyr's attack hits the ground, shattering it into pieces. However, Asetyr is not done yet, as she makes her way toward Aquaz, looking all menacing and dangerous. Fear grips Aquaz as she finds herself in the middle of a really terrifying power. She tries to recite the scriptures to try and get herself out, but Asetyr grabs her mouth shut to stop her. Asetyr knocks Aquaz to the ground and overwhelms her. However, before she can get the chance to finish Aquaz off, Aquaz manages to get back on her feet to block the attack with her shield. Even with her struggles, Asetyr maintains the upper hand, and Aquaz soon finds herself bound by Asetyr's dark chains. As Aquaz loses hold of her power, the shield she created for the adventurers starts to crack too. The adventurer immediately concludes that they are all going to die with the way things are going. Asetyr even smiles at them, telling them how she plans to eat them as snacks once she is done with the annoying Aquaz. She drags Aquaz close, ready to bite down on her neck just so she can get a taste of what the god's servant is. Suddenly, Ketal grabs Asetiar on the shoulders, telling her that she has done enough. Asetiar is totally shocked when she sees Ketal suddenly standing beside her because she didn't even get the chance to sense his presence. Ketal grabs Asetiar, and he throws her off like a tennis ball. Asetiar hits the ground, leaving a loud explosion and destruction. Aquaz is shocked when she sees this, but it then dawns on her that Ketal is fiercely strong because he was able to easily defeat Cain, the powerful swordsmaster. Just then, Asetiar gets back on her feet, talking about how pissed she is that Ketal interrupted her delicious meal. Ketal casually tells Asetiar that Aquaz is his friend, and he can't just stand by to let her die. Asetiar is enraged when she hears this, and she lets Ketal know that he has finally crossed the line. She wanted to keep him as her toy before, but Ketal quickly clears the air, saying he has no interest in becoming Asetiar's toy. Asetiar pulls out her weapon, ready to send Ketal to the afterlife, since he is stubborn enough to defy her. Ketal then turns to Aquaz, telling her to step back, but Aquaz is skeptical, and she tells Ketal that he can't defeat Asetiar. Ketal then tells Aquaz that he might not look like it, but he is quite strong. Aquaz then replies that it is not a case of being strong or not, because only divine power has what it takes to banish a demon from the world. Aquaz claims that this has been the law since the beginning of time, when evil and gods existed. In addition to this, Aquaz believes that they have no chance at all because they are in the demon's territory. With her explanation, Ketal asks her if she is saying only a god can defeat a demon. Ketal is not ready to argue with her deductions, but he reminds her that she is currently in a bad shape, and in her current shape, there is really nothing she can do. Aquaz insists that she is the only one who can, since she is the servant of a god. Ketal is impressed with Aquaz's determination, even though she is badly beaten. He pats her on the head for being courageous, but urges her to leave the fight to him. Ketal smiles while saying it is one of his dreams to fight a demon. Asetiar laughs when she hears this, telling Ketal that he has no chance at defeating him. Ketal then asks her if she is ready to test out her theory. Asetiar takes it up, and she creates a portal right in front of Ketal to get to him in an attempt to catch him off guard. Asetiar looks totally menacing as she prepares to land a hit on Ketal. Aquaz freezes in fear when she sees this, but unknown to her, Ketal is getting his punch ready. Just as Asetiar gets close to him, Ketal makes his move, and he completely removes Asetiar's head with just a punch, leaving Aquaz in total disbelief. Aquaz stands still in silence, trying to piece together whether Ketal just smashed the demon's head with a single punch. Ketal is also surprised, but suddenly Asetiar's demon core helps her regenerate, and this time, she looks more pissed. She angrily asks Ketal what he is, and Ketal replies that he is nothing more than a simple barbarian. Asetiar doesn't believe this, and she employs her demon eyes to check Ketal's buildup. She is surprised to see that Ketal truly has no mana or aura, meaning he is just an ordinary human. She decides to thoroughly check things to know if she is wrong or not. She opens a portal, and she appears behind Ketal with the hope of striking him down. Ketal feels bad about having to strike an enemy that appears to be in human form, but he knows that he has no choice because it can't be helped. This time around, Ketal punches through Asetiar's chest, shocking Asetiar herself. She screams in pain, and Ketal throws her into the distance with blood spilling out of her mouth. Asetiar finds herself on the ground, utterly wounded from just a single punch. She can't believe that a regular punch that is not strengthened by aura or magic has what it takes to really damage her. Even with the severe damage to her body, Asetiar still has what it takes to regenerate. This gets Ketal really curious, and he dashes toward Asetiar at a blinding speed that leaves his launch area shattered. Asetiar senses him coming, but she doesn't have what it takes to react. She can only watch as Ketal gets to her and punches her head into the ground. She loses her head again, but just like before, she regenerates. Ketal finally figures out that whenever her entire head goes off, she gets a new body. This leaves Ketal wondering if Asetiar's core is in her head. On the other hand, Asetiar is pissed that Ketal is trying to fight her with brute strength. Asetiar then decides to open her big mouth to mock Ketal, telling him that he has no chance against her with just brute strength. Ketal then claps back, telling Asetiar that her power doesn't appear to be all that impressive, and this totally crushes Asetiar's pride as a demon. Asetiar loses herself in rage, and she angrily dashes toward Ketal, ready to smack him with her big mallet. However, Ketal proves just how insane he is again by easily blocking Asetiar's weapon like there is no force behind it. With ease, Ketal breaks through the weapon before punching her head off again. Just as usual, she regenerates, but she is starting to get frustrated with the regular punches she is suffering from Ketal. She knows that at full power, she can imbue a hammer with the weight of fortress walls, but Ketal easily blocked it and broke it like it was nothing. She can't believe that Ketal is just a simple barbarian with no idea of what mysticism is. Frustrated, Asetiar unleashes a long-range attack at Ketal, but he easily blocks it. Ketal's fist is able to send a counter wave through the demon's attack. This shatters the attack pretty easily, shocking her and even Aquaz. Centuries ago, Asediar was so powerful that she took down a kingdom with ease, but here she is struggling against a mere barbarian with nothing but punches. Kettle manages to beat Asediar down so badly that he even places his leg on her, but he has confirmed the fact that demons can't die from brute strength. While she is getting pinned down, Asetiar honestly asks Kettle what he is because he has a crazy amount of power. Kettle replies that he is just a simple barbarian, but she is not ready to believe this one bit. Since Kettle appears to be all-powerful, she decides to try out something crazy. She dashes into the air and releases a massive and overwhelming aura while telling Kettle of her plan to shatter him with every power that she possesses. Instead of being scared, Kettle is excited that he is finally getting to see what demon power truly looks like. Meanwhile, Aquaz is ready to help with the fight because Kettle's raw strength won't be enough. Asediar unleashes sharp spikes at Kettle, but he easily throws all of them off with his axe. Asediar is left stunned because of just how easily Kettle is doing it. She's still trying to wrap her head around this when Kettle runs toward her at great speed. At the same time, Aquaz imbues Kettle's axe with divine power. Kettle is blown away because it is his first time witnessing the power of a god. Aquaz then tells Kettle to take Asediar down with the axe. Even though Kettle wants to see more of the demon, he knows that he can't waste any more time. Before making his move, Kettle lets Asediar know that she actually put up a good fight. Asediar watches in horror as Kettle lands a fatal blow on her chest with the axe. Without overthinking it, Asediar figures out that she has lost. Kettle's overwhelming strength, including the divine power, is enough to put Asediar in the dirt. As she fades back into hell, Kettle tells her that she provided good entertainment for him. Even though she lost, Asediar believes that she was able to take one thing back with her to hell, and this is the fact that someone as strong as Kettle exists. Asetiar asks him for his name, and Kettle foolishly reveals it before Aquaz can stop him. Without wasting time, Asetiar announces to everyone in hell to be wary of Kettle. She tells the other demons to feast on her memories about Kettle, and the moment Aquaz hears this, she freaks out. A giant ball of eyes appears right above Kettle to try and overwhelm, but Kettle absorbs it like it's nothing. Asediar is totally stunned when she sees this, because Kettle should have been torn to shreds. Before she can pull off further stunts, Asediar finally disappears into dust. Kettle feels nothing, and he just stretches his body in relaxation that they are done with the mission. In the Barkan territory, in the kingdom of Gehenthra, news starts spreading around about the village they lost contact with. When Luke hears about Asediar's involvement in what happened, he almost loses his mind. He can't believe that they just finished dealing with a lich, and a demon appeared right after. Luke cannot believe that a mere tiny region is getting hit with several calamities over and over again. The captain tells Luke that the rumor is already spreading across the region. Luke thinks the only positive out of everything that has happened so far is the fact that Aquaz was able to send the demon back to hell. Luke concludes that their next step is to find a way to handle the current crisis. Meanwhile, Aquaz is weak, and Kettle is the one watching over her. When she managed to gather a bit of strength, she stood up to leave, saying there was no time to waste because she needed to make her report to the Holy Land without delay. Since she is adamant, Kettle has no plan to stop her. Just then, Aquaz bows her head to Kettle, thanking him for saving her life. She is pretty sure that she would have been a toy in the hands of the demon if Kettle weren't present. Kettle then shocks her by telling her that she has no reason to thank him because he is simply doing what any friend would do. Since Aquaz hasn't given him an official answer about their friendship status, Kettle asks her again. Aquaz is stunned by the way Kettle casually handles things, and she asks him if he would still like to befriend her, even though she is a heretic inquisitor of the sun god. Kettle shocks her by asking if there is any particular reason as to why he shouldn't. Aquaz starts stuttering, and Kettle tells her that she doesn't need to overthink things. Aquaz lets off a little smile before agreeing with Kettle. Kettle then tells Aquaz that there is something he needs to ask her. He wants to know if it is true that one is not allowed to speak a demon's name. Aquaz then reveals that the reason for this is because of something called the mark. Apparently, a demon inscribes a seal of darkness onto the human soul via its name, and this draws malevolent beings toward them. Basically, anyone bearing the mark will become prey sought after by dangerous predators. Those who received the mark in ancient times either got saved by receiving baptism from the gods or were hunted down and killed by the evil. Kettle then asks her if he is marked, but she says no. Nonetheless, she lets him know that his name would have reached the ears of those ruling in hell. Aquaz assures Kettle that he has nothing to worry about because they won't be able to find him without the mark. They only know his name, but they don't know anything else about him. Aquaz says that unless he crosses paths with the demons again, he shouldn't have any issues. Kettle then mentions his worry that the demon could not be killed by brute strength. Aquaz explains to him that this is the true nature of demons. She narrates that after the gods shaped humanity, humans were foolish and ignorant, causing them to act only on instinct. Even with this, the gods did not intervene in the human realm. However, beings from beyond got interested in humanity. They desperately crossed dimensions and started wiping out humans. Tired of the massacre, the gods descended into the human realm. They sided with the humans and named the creatures from beyond demons. With the interference of the gods, the demons were driven out. After this, humanity created a church to honor the gods who saved them. With the help of the divine beings, humanity gained rapid growth. However, as time went on, demons started getting involved in human affairs again. Because of this, the gods chose their followers and granted them power, since demons can only be defeated with divine power. It finally dawns on Catal that he couldn't defeat the demon because she was from another dimension. Aquas confirms this, saying the demons never truly belonged in the world. Catal says it would be catastrophic for demons like a CTR to pop out everywhere. Just then, Aquas clears the air, saying a named demon cannot appear so easily. However, it appears that the demon realm is suffering, which is affecting the human world. Aquas then narrates that it all started a year ago. When Aquas says this, he remembers that he was still in the snowfield trying to complete his quest. After she is tired of talking, Aquas says it is time for her to leave. She assures Catal that he is going to receive a great welcome if he ever comes to visit their church. Catal is glad to hear this, and Aquas immediately gets into a carriage to leave. Even though she is not fully recovered, she figures out that reporting the issue to the saint is paramount. Although Aquas wonders why the sun god hasn't released any prophecy concerning Catal. Later on, Cain heads to the Tower of Magic, where all sorcerers gather. At the tower, he meets one of his colleagues, a suspicious dude with a cool aura. Cain asks him why he is there, and he reveals that he is there to report on his mission. As for Cain, he is also there to report the outcome of his mission, which was a scouting mission into the demon realm. The mission was inside the Forest of Silence, where the laws of the world don't apply. Cain mentions that the things he found in the forest were truly horrifying. Basically, the forest was living up to its name, since there was silence everywhere. Cain mentions that even the sense of magic in the forest couldn't be detected. Cain shouted at his best, not even vibrations echoed back to him. Cain passed out, and when he woke up, the soldiers had started disappearing. The silence in the forest was so terrifying, and it was basically an unpleasant place. Cain wonders why the Emperor would launch a crusade into a place like that. His colleague tells him that the Emperor is most likely after world conquest, which has made him go mad with power. However, the dude believes the demon realm is a really cool place. Nonetheless, Cain is not interested in getting dragged into anything related to the demon realm. Suddenly, the dude snaps his finger and he catches Cain in a spatial magic, preventing him from escaping his domain. It turns out that he has attached the Eye of Observation to Cain before he knew it. He mentions that he already attached it to his body the last time they met. Since the tracker has been on him for quite some time, Cain wonders what else the sorcerer wants to ask him. The sorcerer mentions that he is actually interested in what Cain thinks about Catal. Cain replies that he doesn't know everything just yet, and the mage expresses his shock that Catal was able to defeat Cain and even Kartos. Cain is surprised when he hears that the Lich was defeated, and the sorcerer tells him that the lord of the region is currently keeping it under wraps so as to prevent panic everywhere. However, the stories of this are already spreading throughout the tower because Kartos, who once put the kingdom in fear, was easily defeated. The sorcerer mentions that he actually paid his respects to Kartos because he was his friend. Cain is surprised to hear this, and the sorcerer says they are friends from old times. However, he is surprised that there is no report on any artifact inside Kartos' lair. Cain asks if all of his artifacts were not recovered, and the sorcerers say most of them were, but the most precious one was missing. The sorcerer then asks Cain about his thoughts on everything. He wants to know if Cain truly believed that Kartos was defeated by Catal. Cain gives his honest opinion, saying it might actually be possible. The sorcerer then asks him if he has told the Emperor about it, but he says no because the ruler is already wasting money and resources by sending adventurers into the demon realm. He is quite sure that there will be chaos if the Emperor finds out that the barbarian exists. Cain is pretty sure that things won't end well for the Empire if the two end up clashing. The sorcerer is surprised to hear this, and he asks Cain if he thinks Catal is strong enough to take on the Empire. Cain replies that he is not sure, but he felt the same terrifying aura that he felt the first time he met the sorcerer. The sorcerer believes Cain is already putting Catal at the top of the food chain, the hero class. However, Catal replies that he doesn't have the ability to make such a judgment. After hearing this, the sorcerer mentions that he would like to meet Cain because he appears to be valuable. Later on, Catal is walking through the market when a lady trips and almost falls, but he catches her. He urges her to be careful, and he gently helps her up. Their eyes meet, and Catal fears that the lady is just going to run off like everyone else does. Surprisingly, the lady bows and thanks him before leaving. Catal is still surprised by this until he suddenly realizes something shocking. Everyone in the market is not running away from him, and this is entirely strange. Momentarily, Catal heads to Luke's palace to talk to him. Luke asks about his well-being because he heard about his encounter with the demon and the fact that she almost branded him. Luke is not worried because he doesn't even know what branding means in the first place. Catal then tells Luke that he is getting the feeling that things have changed because the people are not running away from him. Luke then mentions that this is happening because of the rumors spreading around. Apparently, the guards and mercenaries who made it back alive spread the story. Apparently, while they were fighting the demon, most of them passed out only to wake up when Katal was about to deal the finishing blow. They saw Katal's axe radiating with divine power, causing them to believe that Aquaz lent him her powers. This basically earned him the title of the one who fought alongside Aquaz to take down the demon. Kettle finally realizes what happened, and Luke tries to apologize for the misunderstanding, but Katal doesn't care. He only cares about the fact that his perception of the people has changed. Luke says they basically see him as someone dangerous to demons. When Katal returns to the guild, Rosa congratulates him, telling him that he has received an upgrade, and he is now C rank. Katal is shocked to hear this because he just went up 3 levels at once. Rosa tells him that he doesn't need to act all surprised because he actually earned it. Rosa mentions that he will be getting a new mercenary tag, but it might take some time because it is custom made. Basically, Katal is getting a custom tag because, from C rank, all mercenaries are considered true mercenaries vouched for by the guild. In addition to this, he gets access to most places because he is C rank. He can now enter the kingdom's capital, churches, and other important places without having to go through much trouble. However, the imperial capital is still out of the question of places he can visit. Katal is surprised to hear this, and he concludes that the empire is quite strict. Rosa mentions that he needs the recognition of a noble to enter the capital. Rosa then whispers, saying no one really knows what is going on inside the capital, but there are some unnerving rumors from there. In fact, the guild has less intel on it than they have on the demon realm. Rosa then moves away from the capital and the rumors, telling Katal that he can now accept almost any request thanks to the fact that he is now C rank. In fact, he is allowed to enter A rank dungeons as long as he forms a party. Katal is glad to hear this because he just got the chance to explore even further. After leaving the guild, Katal sets up a meeting with his runaway party members. They learn about the fight with the demon, but Katal assures them that there is nothing to worry about because Aquaz already told them that everything is settled. Kasan is surprised at just how powerful Aquaz is to have defeated the demon, but deep down, Hayes is boiling on her chair because she is the only one who knows the truth. Hayes didn't pass out like the others, and she got the chance to see just how crazy Katal really is. He was basically toying with Asetir and beating her up like trash. Hayes is pissed that Aquaz only swooped in at the last minute to take the credit for the battle. Kasan then asks Katal what he plans to do since he is now C rank. Katal says there is nothing different from what he has been doing before because he is just going to continue his job as a mercenary. While the other party members are looking at Katal as one cool person, Hayes is freaking out because what she witnessed is practically unreal. Katal then asks the team what their plans are, and they mention that there is nothing for them to do since they are trash F-rank mercenaries. Deep down, Kasan believes he is just going to live out his life as a trash person. However, his mindset has changed, and he tells Katal that he wants to live his life to the fullest, just like Katal. Tyrannus wastes no time making fun of the dude, and this sparks another stare-down between them. Katal then asks Hayes what her plans are, and she mentions that she wants to follow Colossia's will at all times. Katal then mentions what he heard from Aquaz about the followers of Colossia being in a state of rest aside from the high-ranking officials. Hayes is shocked to hear this, and she tries to clear the air, saying she is a regular priest. Katal is not in the mood to argue, and he tells Hayes that she is free to believe whatever makes her sleep better at night. Later that night at the guild, Rosa is preparing to leave because it is already late when a strange dude in a hood shows up to post a request. Even though she is tired and stressed already, she attends to the man, asking him what type of request he wants to set up. The man reveals that he wants to request an escort for himself and a young woman. Rosa asks him the destination he is heading to, and she is ultimately shocked when she learns that it is the Denian Kingdom. Rosa wonders why the man is posting a request at such a request guild. With the way she sees things, she believes that the man and whoever is with him are trying to hide their identities. Rosa then decides to play her hand, and she accepts the request, but asks the man if he has anything to verify his identity. Well guys, that's the end of the video. If you like this video, comment part 2 in the comment section. Also subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and like the video. Thank you for watching and see you next time again.